Chapter 375. Hearing Han Qingyun's answer, Sun Qiao was shocked. Although she had already guessed that those few drops of potion were definitely potions that increased defense, she knew that this potion was not simple when she saw Han Qingyun's expression. After a moment of silence, Sun Qiao suddenly flew into a rage. She slammed the table and said angrily, "Han Qingyun, what's wrong with you? Don't you think it's shameless to use such a method in the middle of the competition?" Han Qingyun did not care at all. He just waved his hand and said, "Sectmaster's son, it's not written in our contract. Since it's not written, it means that I can do anything as long as it's within the scope of the contract." At this point, Han Qingyun paused for a moment before continuing, "Of course, since we can do this, Sectmaster's son can do the same too. No matter what kind of defense you add to your equipment now, I won't mind. Don't worry, I won't be as stingy as you, huh?" Looking at Han Qingyun, who was laughing proudly, Sun Qiao said angrily, "Han Qingyun, you're too despicable. In order to win this competition, you're willing to use all kinds of methods. You're really disappointing." Hearing Sun Qiao's words, Han Qingyun clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Sectmaster's son, you're right. As long as I can win this competition, I'll use all kinds of methods. As long as I can win, I don't care about anything." At this point, Han Qingyun's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of coldness. "Sect leader's son, I advise you not to fight with me, so as not to hurt the harmony between everyone. Anyway, you're going to lose in the end, so why do you have to make such a pointless struggle?" Looking at the despicable Han Qingyun, Sun Qiao was so angry that she gritted her teeth, but there was nothing she could do. There was indeed no such clause in the contract. In other words, what Han Qingyun did was absolutely within the rules. In the past, no one had noticed this because everyone had a moral bottom line. No one could be so shameless. They knew that Kikyomen's equipment was leather armor, but they still wanted to use equipment made of deep-sea cold iron and adamantine for the competition. Seeing that they couldn't win, they even invited the elders of their sect to use brute force to win this competition. In the end, they even used an even more despicable method to temporarily increase the defensive power of the equipment. This simply refreshed Sun Qiao's thoughts. She originally thought that Han Qingyun, as the leader of a large sect like the Taiyangmen, would at least have to abide by some rules. She did not expect Han Qingyun to do such a thing. Although Sun Qiao was furious, she couldn't do anything about it. Although Han Qingyun was despicable and shameless, the contract didn't specify this point, which made her feel helpless. Just as Sun Qiao was at a loss for what to do, she heard Yun Jinbai's voice. "Sect Master Han, the few drops of water that Senior Good dripped onto the equipment, is that the legendary spirit water?" Hearing Yun Jinbai's question, Han Qingyun could not help but clap and praise, as expected of the third disciple of the sword crafting sect. "Your knowledge is indeed different. You even recognize our sect's treasure, the spirit water. Truly amazing." At this point, Han Qingyun paused for a moment before continuing. "That's right, this is spirit water that can increase one's defense." Hearing Han Qingyun's answer, Yun Jinbai instantly exclaimed. Just now, he was only guessing. He did not expect the Taiyangmen to take out such a treasure in order to win this competition. Thinking that such a precious treasure was used in such a situation, Yun Jinbai's heart ached as he sighed. "Sectmaster Han, it's too wasteful. Such a rare treasure was wasted on this equipment made of deep-sea cold iron. What a waste." After hearing Yun Jinbai's words, Han Qingyun only smiled faintly and glanced at Sun Qiao from the corner of his eyes before slowly saying, "Brother Yun, this is mainly due to Sect Master Sun's strength. He was able to forge a piece of armor made of wild bear skin into such a superb equipment. Since Kikyomen can have such good equipment, why will we Taiyangmen be stingy with these few drops of spirit water? Sect Master Sun, don't you think so?" Hearing Yun Jinbai's words just now, Sun Qiao was already extremely shocked. In her eyes, equipment made of deep-sea cold iron must be rare equipment. She did not expect Yun Jinbai to say that equipment made of deep-sea cold iron was not worthy of this drop of spirit water. In this case, the spirit water was something even more precious than deep-sea cold iron. No, it was something far more precious than deep-sea cold iron. Thinking of this, Sun Shower looked at Han Qingyun in shock. She did not expect Han Qingyun to pay such a huge price just to deal with her. Just as Sun Shower was still in shock, Yun Jianbai's voice reached her ears again. Sect Master Han, what a pity. I once heard from my master that a drop of spirit water can increase a piece of equipment's defense by 10%. I wonder if this is true. In order to increase the Tiangongmen's influence and not let others know how many treasures the Tiangongmen had, Han Qingyun naturally answered Yun Jianbai's question frankly. That's right. What your master said is true. Every drop of spirit water can increase a piece of equipment's defense by 10%. This is definitely true. Speaking of this, Han Qingyun turned to look at Sun Shower and laughed. All right, Sect Master Sun, the effects of this spirit water can be stacked. I think I just saw my master pour a total of 5 drops of spirit water on that piece of equipment. Sigh. I wonder how much it can increase a piece of equipment's defense. All right, Sect Master Sun, I wonder if your equipment can withstand it. Ha! At the end, Han Qingyun could no longer hold it in and began to laugh loudly. Looking at Han Qingyun, who could not stop laughing, Sun Shower only felt more and more guilty. She did not even have the energy to be angry. Han Qingyun was right. When Gu Yunfei was pouring the spirit water, Sun Shower was also staring at it. She was sure that there were 5 drops of spirit water. A drop of spirit water could increase a piece of equipment's defense by 10%, and the effects could be stacked. A total of 5 drops of spirit water. How much defense would that increase? At the thought of this, Sun Shower's brows furrowed into a fried dough twist. Her heart gradually sank, as if it had sunk into a 1,000-year-old ice cellar. She slowly fell into a cold place, causing her whole body to shiver. According to Sun Shower's estimation, equipment made of deep-sea cold iron and adamantine could originally withstand a level 13 attack. With the addition of these 5 drops of spirit water, it could probably withstand a level 18 or 19 attack. This change had already caused Sun Shower's mind to go blank. Sun Shower naturally knew how terrifying a level 18 or 19 attack was. If the Tiangongmen's equipment could withstand such a powerful attack, could her own leather armor? Chapter 376. The competition continued. The level 12 competition was over, and the level 13 competition was about to begin. Gu Yunfei took the saber from Han Yuchao and walked over to the Kikyaman's leather armor. Gu Yunfei took a deep breath and repeated the same trick. With a thought, the true qi surged around his body, once again bringing up a large cloud of smoke and dust, blocking everyone's line of sight. Gu Yunfei sneered as he stood in the cloud of dust. He raised the saber in his hand and activated his true qi. A 1-foot-long blue light flashed on the tip of the saber. Seeing that the surrounding dust had completely obscured the audience's vision, Gu Yunfei growled and stabbed the saber in his hand into the Kikyaman's leather armor. Gu Yunfei had used a slashing method in his previous 2 attacks. The Kikyaman's leather armor was covered with a layer of heavenly silk. Gu Yunfei suspected that it was the heavenly silk that was causing trouble. That was why he couldn't cut the leather armor. In Gu Yunfei's opinion, the leather armor had been soaked in medicinal water. Other than that, there was only a thin layer of heavenly silk on the outside of the leather armor. Gu Yunfei was sure that the Kikyaman couldn't have spirit water. Even if the Kikyaman had spirit water, Gu Yunfei wouldn't be afraid. Gu Yunfei knew very well how strong the defense of the wild bear skin was. Even if 10 drops of spirit water were poured on the skin, it wouldn't be able to block his attack. If that wasn't the case, then the problem must be the heavenly silk on the outside of the leather armor. With this idea in mind, he naturally had to give it a try. Therefore, Gu Yunfei used the method of breaking the surface of the leather armor at a single point to attack it. Gu Yunfei's idea was good, but as soon as the tip of his saber pierced the leather armor, he felt that something was wrong. The tip of the saber stopped moving after piercing the leather armor. Gu Yunfei could only sigh when he felt this sensation on his hand. Then, he retreated from the smoke. After the dust settled and the equipment was seen clearly, the audience cheered again. However, the judges' table was silent again. Not only was the judges' table silent, but there were also sighs. Looking at the intact leather armor, Yun Jianbai sighed. Even though the leather armor could withstand a level 13 attack, it did not matter. That piece of equipment, which was made of deep-sea cold iron and adamantine, could withstand a level 18 or level 19 attack immediately after being dripped with 5 drops of spirit water. Yun Jianbai sighed in his heart. What a pity for this leather armor. In this world, there were also leather armors that could see level 13 attacks, but that was different. Those leather armors that could withstand level 13 attacks were undoubtedly made from superior materials. It was precisely because of the quality of the materials that equipment could withstand level 13 attacks. However, the leather armor in front of him was different. It was made from the skin of an ordinary wild bear. Kikyaman's leather armor, made from the skin of a wild bear, could actually withstand a level 13 attack. No, Gu Yunfei was the one making the armor. Although the testing sword was only level 13, everyone knew that when Gu Yunfei used a level 13 sword, the effect would definitely be more than level 13. This kind of leather armor that subverted everyone's understanding was simply breathtaking. It was a pity that the people in the audience did not know the real situation, but the people on the judging platform already knew about the spirit water. Yun Jianbai really felt that it was not worth it for the Tiangongmen. Such a precious spirit water was actually used in such a worthless way. Think about it. If you created a piece of superior equipment and then dripped the spirit water on it, how big of an effect would it have? When he thought of this result, Yun Jianbai was extremely moved. Looking at the undamaged leather armor, Sun Shower did not feel happy at all. She only felt sad. So what if it could withstand a level 13 attack? Could it withstand a level 18 attack? Sun Shower didn't even dare to think about whether or not her wilderness bear leather armor would be able to withstand a level 18 attack. Sun Shower knew all too well how powerful a level 18 attack was. No matter what, Sun Shower did not believe that a piece of leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear could withstand a level 18 attack. To be able to withstand a level 13 attack was already all thanks to Prince Zhang's ancestral skill. Most importantly, Sun Shower admitted that Prince Zhang's ancestral skill was very powerful, but a skill was a skill after all. It could not reach a state where it could defy the heavens. To be able to make a piece of leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear resist a level 13 attack was already on the verge of defying the heavens. Sun Shower even thought that Prince Zhang would not be able to withstand a level 14 attack. Perhaps, when Gu Yunfei used a level 14 attack, the leather armor would be torn apart. Yes, that's right. Under Gu Yunfei's powerful attack, as long as the leather armor's defense was broken, it would immediately be shattered. The next test was the Tiangongmen's equipment. Without any suspense, after the spirit water's enhancement, the defense of this piece of equipment made from deep-sea cold iron and adamantine immediately increased. Originally, a level 13 attack would have already left a mark on the equipment. But after the spirit water dripped on it, the level 14 sword easily bounced off, leaving no mark. It was as if it had never been hit at all. Seeing this scene, the judges were still silent. This was because they already knew that with the spirit water's enhancement, not to mention a level 14 attack, even a level 15 attack would be easily blocked. The judges knew this fact, but the people in the audience did not. The level 13 sword had already left a mark on this piece of equipment. Many people guessed that this piece of equipment would be destroyed under a level 14 attack. But they did not expect that the piece of equipment that was damaged by a level 13 sword would not be damaged at all by a level 14 sword. This change made the people in the audience unable to believe their eyes. After a short moment of silence, the audience immediately fell into a chaotic discussion. What's going on? Why didn't the defense break? Could it be that the Tiangongmen are cheating? Hearing the discussion in the audience, Sun Shower sneered in her heart. She couldn't help but turn around and look at Han Qingyan. Secmaster Han, did you hear that? Someone said that you guys are cheating? Hearing Sun Qiao's question, Han Qingyun waved his hand and said indifferently, cheating? So what if I'm cheating, huh? Han Qingyun laughed for a while before continuing, Secmaster Sun, if you're so capable, you can cheat too. I won't stop you, huh? Hearing Han Qingyun's shameless words, Sun Qiao was so angry that she didn't know what to say. After a while, she said angrily, Han Qingyun, you're too despicable. Hearing this, Han Qingyun sneered, despicable? What do you mean by despicable? We Tiangongmen are rich and have countless treasures. Can we just watch as we lose the competition and not use the treasures that belong to us Tiangongmen? Secmaster Sun, wouldn't I be too stupid? Chapter 377. The match continued. Next, both sides would be facing a level 15 attack. Sun Xiao looked at Gu Yunfei, who was already holding a sword in his hand. Based on past experience, the leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear could at most withstand a level 5 attack. Now, however, it had to withstand a level 15 attack. Zhang Meng's ancestral skill had increased the defense by a whole 10 levels. Could it withstand a level 15 attack? More importantly, with Gu Yunfei attacking, it wouldn't be just a level 15 attack. Thinking of this, Sun Xiao subconsciously looked at Zhang Meng, who was sitting in the audience, hoping to gain some confidence from him. Han Qingyun, who was no longer worried, had been secretly observing Sun Xiao's movements. When he saw Sun Xiao looking at the audience, his heart skipped a beat, and he quickly followed Sun Xiao's gaze. Sure enough, just as Han Qingyun had guessed, Sun Xiao's gaze was on the young man. Han Qingyun had originally suspected that there was something fishy about Kikyaman's armor. Based on his experience, even if he didn't know how to make leather armor, he knew that it was almost impossible to make a leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear reach such a high level of defense. Unless the Qiqiao sect also had a treasure like the spirit water, they wouldn't be able to do this. But could Kikyaman have a treasure like the spirit water? Needless to say, Han Qingyun knew that it was impossible. It wasn't that Han Qingyun looked down on Kikyaman, but it was the truth. As the deputy leader of the Tiangongmen, his knowledge should be quite extensive. But until now, as the deputy leader of the Tiangongmen, Han Qingyun had never heard of any treasure other than the spirit water that could increase a piece of equipment's defense so much. If Kikyaman really had such a treasure, then after so many years, they would have used it once or twice. It could be said that as long as Kikyaman used such a treasure, Han Qingyun would definitely know. Han Qingyun was meticulous and careful. No matter what he did, he would only do it when he was in a foolproof state. In this competition between the Tiangongmen and Kikyaman, Kikyaman was only focused on making equipment, but the Tiangongmen's Han Qingyun was definitely not having an easy time. In order to investigate Kikyaman's background, Han Qingyun had already sent people to investigate the entire South County. Basically, the Tiangongmen had investigated all the equipment sold by Kikyaman. The final conclusion was that Kikyaman was just an ordinary sect. There was nothing special about it. It was precisely because Kikyaman was too common that Han Qingyun decided to start with Kikyaman. However, what Han Qingyun did not expect was that Kikyaman's leather armor, made from the skin of a wild bear, could actually resist a level 14 attack. This was already beyond Han Qingyun's expectations. Han Qingyun knew that there was definitely a problem. With Kikyaman's strength, they definitely could not reach such a level. Then what was the problem? Han Qingyun thought hard and thought of all the possibilities, but he still could not figure out where the problem was. Seeing that Sun Xiao was actually looking at that young man at the most dangerous moment, Han Qingyun began to have some doubts. Could the problem be with that young man? Looking at the young man sitting on the spectator's stand, who had been smiling the entire time, Han Qingyun's frown deepened. Was that really the case? Han Qingyun turned his head to look at Sun Xiao. He saw that Sun Xiao's originally nervous expression had actually calmed down. Han Qingyun's heart suddenly beat wildly. He was now basically certain that the problem was with that young man. Thinking of this, Han Xingyun stopped watching the competition and stopped looking at Sun Xiaoer. He only stared at that young man. He wanted to see what was wrong with that young man. Han Xingyun was puzzled. Gu Yunfei was even more puzzled. He did not understand why his attack just now could not break through the defense of this leather armor. This was really too strange. Gu Yunfei was certain that if his attack just now had hit his own equipment, it would definitely have been smashed into pieces. However, such a powerful attack had not damaged this leather armor at all. He had already tried using a knife to cut this leather armor, but it did not work. He had also tried using a knife to stab this leather armor, but it did not work either. Then, what should he do for his next attack? Gu Yunfei was in a difficult position. As the second elder of the Heaven's Craftsman faction, he actually couldn't break through the defense of a piece of leather armor, even with a level 14 offensive weapon. If word of this got out, wouldn't he become a laughingstock? However, what kind of attack should he use? Looking at the leather armor in front of him, Gu Yunfei suddenly gritted his teeth and secretly made up his mind. Ever since Gu Yunfei made his move, Lung Yelyo had already hidden far away. Gu Yunfei's strength was very strong. She did not want to be affected by the attack at the side. Although Lung Yelyo was standing far away, her eyes were wide open. She stared closely at the situation that was happening over here. Lung Yelyo saw that Gu Yunfei hesitated for a moment and then began to swing his knife again. In the next moment, just like before, smoke and dust rose everywhere. The flying smoke and dust grew bigger and bigger. It enveloped Gu Yunfei and the leather armor. Standing at Lung Yelyo's position, she could no longer see Gu Yunfei's figure. She could only see a sky full of dust floating in the air. Following Gu Yunfei's low roar, Lung Yelyo felt the smoke and dust in front of her suddenly fluctuate rapidly. A moment later, a figure flew out of the smoke and dust and stood outside the smoke and dust. The person who flew out of the smoke and dust was Gu Yunfei. After he left the smoke and dust, he sneered at the direction of the smoke and dust. Just now, when he attacked, he still used a slashing method. However, although it was a slashing this time, it was definitely not an ordinary slashing method. Gu Yunfei's martial arts were very strong. He had a unique skill called triple wave. As the name implied, the meaning of triple wave was to be able to attack 3 times in a row in an instant. This was not a simple 3 slashes. Each slash was heavier than the previous one. If the first slash was 1 point sharp, the second slash will become 2 points of strength, and the third slash will become 3 points of strength. This method of stacking strength was Gu Yunfei's unique skill, triple wave. The reason why Gu Yunfei made the smoke and dust around him was to use his unique skill, triple wave. Amidst the smoke and dust, Gu Yunfei used his unique skill, triple wave, on the leather armor, increasing the power of his attack greatly. In this attack, although Gu Yunfei did not feel the blade cutting into the leather armor, he did not care. The blade of a level 15 knife was abnormally sharp. It was definitely not an exaggeration to say that it could cut through hair. For such a sharp blade to cut into the leather armor, even if it was as if it was nothing, it was not surprising at all. Gu Yunfei didn't believe that this leather armor could remain intact under the attack of his 3 heavy waves. Gu Yunfei had been famous for many years. He was very confident in his attack power. He believed that after this slash, the competition should be over. Chapter 378. As the dust in the arena gradually dispersed, Kikyamin's leather armor, which was made from the skin of a wild bear, appeared before everyone's eyes. Gu Yunfei was the closest to it. Before the dust had completely dispersed, he was stunned. His face was full of disbelief. The leather armor was still on the shelf, undamaged. Gu Yunfei blinked hard, trying to make sure that his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. No, his eyes were playing tricks on him. His ferocious attack just now didn't cause any damage to the leather armor. There wasn't even a mark left on the surface. It was as if Gu Yunfei hadn't attacked the leather armor at all. Gu Yunfei was shocked. He didn't expect that his ultimate skill, triple wave, wouldn't be able to break through the defense of the leather armor. Looking at the equipment in front of him, Gu Yunfei lost his initial calmness. He started to regret coming here. He shouldn't have gotten involved in this mess. If he hadn't come, even if his disciple, Han Qingyun, lost, it would be his own business. It wouldn't have anything to do with Gu Yunfei. But now he couldn't. He had already come to the arena. If he lost this match, he would be doomed eternally. Gu Yunfei kept thinking in his mind, what kind of battle tactic would he need to use to break the leather armor in his next attack? Looking at the dejected Gu Yunfei, Han Qingyun wasn't surprised. Instead, he was happy. As Gu Yunfei's disciple, he naturally knew how strong Gu Yunfei was. Although the attacks just now seemed powerful, Han Qingyun knew that Gu Yunfei hadn't shown his true ability. As the second elder of the Tiangongmen, how could he not have some trump cards? As long as Gu Yunfei was angry, he would show his true ability. Han Qingyun was sure that if Gu Yunfei showed his true ability, the strength of his attacks would definitely double. Now, both of their equipment could only withstand level 15 attacks. This kind of attack, for the equipment made of deep-sea cold iron and fine gold, was indeed impossible to withstand. However, with the support of the spirit water, it could easily withstand level 15 attacks. Han Qingyun guessed that if there weren't too many accidents, this equipment wouldn't have a problem withstanding level 18 attacks. Of course, this was only Han Qingyun's guess. After all, the spiritual water was so precious, and he had never used it before. He only knew that when this spirit water was discovered, someone had used this spirit water in an experiment to test its effects. The conclusion was that buying a drop of this spirit water could increase one's defense by 10%. As for whether it could really increase one's defense by 10%, no one knew, and no one dared to experiment with such a precious spirit water. Even so, Han Qingyun was certain that his equipment could definitely withstand level 15 attacks. Before level 18 attacks, there would be no problems at all. What Han Qingyun was thinking about now was how to destroy the opponent's wallet between level 18 and level 15 attacks. The only thing he could rely on now was Gu Yunfei. Only when Gu Yunfei used his full strength would he be able to break the wallet. And now, Gu Yunfei was on the verge of exploding. Han Qingyun believed that when he attacked at level 16, Gu Yunfei would explode with his full strength. This was indeed the case. Gu Yunfei was furious and had already started to get angry. He was ready to use his full strength to destroy the leather armor that had humiliated him. After the Tiangongmen's equipment passed the level 15 test, it was time for the level 16 test. Gu Yunfei took the level 16 sword that Han Yuchao handed to him and gripped the hilt tightly as he walked towards the Kikyaman's leather armor. In all these years, there hadn't been anyone worthy of Gu Yunfei's full strength. Now he was going to attack a piece of equipment with his full strength. When he arrived in front of the Kikyaman's leather armor, Gu Yunfei groaned. In an instant, the surrounding smoke and dust rose, blocking everyone's vision once again. In the smoke and dust, no one could see that Gu Yunfei's eyes slowly turned red. The joints on his arms started to crack, and his muscles started to swell. In the blink of an eye, his arms were much thicker than before. Gu Yunfei felt the power in his arms and took a deep breath. True Qi started to flow in his body and gradually gathered in his arms. The level 16 sword in his hand also spewed out red sword light. At this moment, Gu Yunfei was truly in his strongest state. Feeling the majestic power in his body, Gu Yunfei couldn't help but roar to the sky. A moment later, there was a long tail of light in his hand as he slashed towards the leather armor like an avalanche. Han Qingyun had been staring intently at the smoke and dust that had been rising from the ground. Although there was a lot of smoke and dust on the field, the red sword light emitted by Gu Yunfei's sword was too dazzling. Amidst the smoke and dust, Han Qingyun saw the red saber light. Only now did Han Qingyun feel completely relieved. The blue sword light was just a normal attack, but the red sword light was different. This meant that Gu Yunfei had used his full strength. Han Qingyun believed that not many people in the entire South County could block Gu Yunfei's full strength. Even Ye Tianhao's master, Jiang Nantian, the leader of the Sky Sword sect, had to be careful. Han Qingyan didn't believe that a piece of leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear could block such a powerful attack. The red sword light flashed in the smoke and dust. Han Qingyan wasn't the only one who saw it. And yet Tianhao from the Sky Sword sect also saw it. And yet Tianhao was shocked when he saw the red blade light. Even he would not be able to block such a powerful attack. And yet Tianhao had been practicing swordsmanship for more than 30 years. Until now, he could only make the sword in his hand emit a 1-foot-long blue sword light. And yet Tianhao naturally understood what the red sword light meant. He didn't expect Gu Yunfei's martial arts to be so powerful that he could emit a red sword light. Seeing this, and yet Tianhao could only sigh. He knew that Kikyaman's leather armor was finished. Such a powerful attack could even split mountains. No matter how high the defense of a leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear was, it couldn't block such a powerful attack. Even if Kikyaman's leather armor could block a level 16 sword light, Gu Yunfei's power was enough to shatter the leather armor. And yet Tianhao turned to look at Sun Xiaoer. He only wanted to ask if Kikyaman still had such a powerful armor. If there was only one such armor, it would be a pity if it was destroyed by Gu Yunfei. And yet Tianhao inwardly lamented that it was a pity, but Yun Jianbai didn't feel the slightest bit of pity. He was only thinking about what method the Seven Skills sect had used to make an armor made from the skin of a wild bear have such terrifying defensive capabilities. Chapter 379. Yun Jianbai knew very well that if he could find out about this method, it would definitely be of great help to his sword forging. This time, Gu Yunfei's attack was not as silent as the previous few times. Instead, it made a muffled sound. After this muffled sound, countless vital energies surged in all directions in the smoke and dust, floating even further away. Not only that, but the people in front of the spectator stand were also shaken by the strong wind after that muffled sound. Their ears were buzzing, and some of the weaker people even faintly felt like vomiting. Sun Xiaoer grabbed her clothes, which were fluttering in the wind, and felt a burst of shock in her heart. She could actually feel such a powerful energy fluctuation from so far away. Just now, a slightly larger speck of dust in the smoke and dust had hit Sun Xiaoer's face, causing her to feel a faint pain. Sun Xiaoer stared blankly at the smoke and dust in the competition venue. Her mind had long been blank because of the shock. She was just a small Kikyaman sect master and had never seen such a powerful explosion of power. Now, she had seen it. However, such a powerful explosion of power was actually caused by the leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear. The surroundings were quiet, and no one dared to speak. Everyone was waiting for the smoke and dust to dissipate. Gu Yunfei retreated from the smoke and dust, took a deep breath, and began to adjust his turbulent vital energy. That attack just now was indeed his strongest power. However, although the power this time was much stronger than before, the current Gu Yunlong was not as confident as before. This was because he did not see any fragments of the leather armor in the smoke and dust. Gu Yunfei was very clear that even if the leather armor couldn't withstand his strength, it would still fly all over the place. However, Gu Yunfei searched for a long time in the smoke and dust, but did not find any fragments of the leather armor. Seeing this scene, Gu Yunfei's heart began to beat faster. Although he was very confident in his own power, that leather armor was too strange. Now, he had become somewhat unconfident. The smoke and dust slowly settled on the ground. Although it had not completely dissipated, the crowd could still see the leather armor standing in the smoke and dust clearly. Gu Yunfei looked at the leather armor in shock. He was the closest to it, so naturally he could see it the most clearly. After such a powerful attack, the leather armor was still hanging on the hanger without a scratch. How was this possible? Gu Yunfei could not help but exclaim. A level 16 saber, coupled with his full power, could not even break the leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear. If this were to spread, who would believe it? Gu Yunfei was certain that the power of his attack just now, even if it was a huge rock as big as a house, was split in half. However, the leather armor was still intact. Han Qingyun was truly shocked this time. Master's attack just now had indeed erupted with his full strength. But why couldn't such a powerful attack break through the armor's defense? At that moment, Han Kikyaman's attack, Kikyaman, even a level 16 saber and his master's full power couldn't do anything to the 7 possibilities sex leather armor, which was made from the skin of a wild bear. What should I do? Han Qingyun, who was originally as calm as water, was now a little anxious. After the level 16 test, Xiaoman was only level 17 before level 18. His master's powerful attack had actually failed. What should I do? Han Qingyun's forehead broke out in cold sweat again as he pondered. What should I do next? He had expected his equipment to be able to withstand a level 18 attack, but Kikyaman's equipment was catching up. At this moment, although Han Qingyun was still sitting there without moving, he was extremely anxious in his heart. His master had used all his strength. In Han Qingyun's opinion, even if his master used a level 17 saber, he might not be able to break the armor. What should I do? Thinking of this, Han Qingyun could no longer sit still. He hurriedly stood up and walked towards Gu Yunfei. Although he could not think of a solution, it did not mean that his master could not think of one. Han Qingyun quickly walked in front of Gu Yunfei and said in a low voice, "Master, what should I do?" Gu Yunlong, who was already feeling embarrassed, was furious when he saw Han Qingyun. If it were not for this rascal, he would not have to come here to embarrass himself. Thinking of this, Gu Yunlong raised his hand again and slapped Han Qingyun hard. He said angrily, "Is this the result of your investigation?" Han Qingyun naturally knew why Gu Yunlong was angry. If he were in Gu Yunlong's shoes, he would have done the same. Covering his red face, Han Qingyun said in a low voice, "Master, even if you beat me to death now, it won't solve the problem." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunlong took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He also knew that this was not the time to be angry. "Then tell me, now that things have come to this, what else can I do?" Han Qingyun heard this and quickly said in a low voice, "Master, I remember that you still have an ultimate skill that you haven't used. Later, why don't you use all your strength together with your ultimate skill? I think it should be able to double your strength." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei sighed and nodded. "Indeed, it can double my strength." Han Qingyun said, "If that's the case, then please use all your strength together with your ultimate skill. I think it should work." Gu Yunlong heard this and sighed again. "That's the only way. This equipment is too strange. In all these years, this old man has never seen such a strange equipment. A leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear can reach such a level. I'm afraid no one would believe me if I told them." After saying this, Gu Yunfei turned to look at Han Qingyun and asked with a frown, "Didn't you find anything wrong with my attacks?" After hearing Gu Yunfei's question, Han Qingyun shook his head. "No, I didn't find anything wrong with it." Gu Yunfei heard this and said doubtfully, "Could it be that Kikyaman used some secret technique to increase the defense of this equipment?" Han Qingyun shook his head. Logically speaking, that shouldn't be the case. Kikyaman is only a small sect, and there are only a dozen people in total. Before the competition, I had already sent people to investigate these people thoroughly. They were all ordinary people, and there was no possibility that any of them had a secret technique. Gu Yunfei heard this and nodded. Indeed, there shouldn't be such a secret technique. If there really was such a secret technique, wouldn't it be a heaven-defying existence? After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun couldn't help but frown. Kikyaman's most skilled craftsman is undoubtedly Kikyaman's leader, Sun Qiaoer. However, I have also investigated Sun Qiaoer several times. Chapter 380. Han Qingyun continued, "Sun Qiaoer's manufacturing technique is a family heirloom. I've never heard of anyone in her family possessing such advanced techniques. After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei nodded. From the looks of it, this technique doesn't belong to Kikyaman. Someone else must have helped them. After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun's eyes lit up. He turned his head to look at Zhang Ming, and his heart skipped a beat. Could it be that this person had helped Kikyaman? Thinking of this, Han Qingyun hurriedly whispered into Gu Yunfei's ear. At the start of the competition, the 7 skills sec sent that young man sitting on the spectator's stand, but I chased him away. Now, he is sitting on the spectator's stand. I don't know if he has anything to do with this matter. As he spoke, Han Qingyun signaled Zhang Ming with his eyes. Gu Yunfei followed Han Qingyun's gaze and saw Zhang Ming. Seeing Zhang Ming smiling, Gu Yunfei felt a little suspicious. Could it be that this young man was the culprit? Thinking of this, Gu Yunfei turned his head to look at Han Qingyun and said in a low voice, "Go over there now and let this young man sit beside you. By the way, ask him if he was the one who did this. See if he can find out anything." When Han Qingyun heard this, he hurriedly nodded. "Don't worry, master. I'll do it right away." Seeing the two of them whispering to each other, Sun Qiaoer couldn't help but feel resentful. The two of them discussed for a while. Who knew what kind of rotten idea they would come up with? Gu Yunfei and Han Qingyun chatted for a long time before Han Qingyun left the competition venue and returned to the judges' table. As soon as Han Qingyun sat down, he turned to Sun Qiaoer and smiled. "Sec Leader's son, what's your relationship with that young man?" After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Qiaoer was stunned. She then asked, "What does this have to do with our competition?" "Sec Master Han, it's better if you don't know." King Han Qingyun shook his head and pointed at Zhang Ming with a smile. "Sec Leader's son, that's not right. That young man has an impressive appearance. I can tell at a glance that he's no ordinary person. Why don't you let him sit beside me? What do you think?" After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Qiaoer shook her head. "No need. He's fine sitting there. Let's continue with the competition. Don't worry about him." Han Qingyun shook his head. "That won't do. Sect Leader's son, it's not easy to meet such a valiant young hero. How can we not talk?" Without waiting for Sun Qiaoer's reply, Han Qingyun turned to the Tiangongman's disciple and said, "Go and invite that young master over. Bring a chair over and place it next to me. Invite this young master to sit beside me. I want to talk to him in detail." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Qiaoer was taken aback. Her sect competition this time was entirely dependent on Prince Zhang. If Prince Zhang were to do some little tricks over there, no one would notice. Once he came to Han Qingyun's side, Han Qingyun would probably keep an eye on him and prevent Zhang Ming from using his ancestral skills. Thinking of this, Sun Qiaoer hurriedly waved her hand at the Tiangongman's disciple. "All right, you don't have to go. Just let him sit there." Before Sun Qiaoer could finish her words, Han Qingyun waved his hand and interrupted her. He said to the Tiangongman's disciple, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and invite him over." Hearing this, the Tiangongman's disciple did not dare to delay. He hurriedly responded and walked towards Zhang Ming. Seeing the Tiangongman's disciple leave, cold sweat broke out on Sun Qiaoer's forehead. If it wasn't for Zhang Ming's help, they would definitely fail the next test. Thinking of this, Sun Qiaoer was so anxious that she screamed, "Stop right there. You're not allowed to go." The Tiangongman's disciple who went to invite Zhang Ming was shocked by Sun Qiaoer's scream. He hurriedly turned around and looked at Han Qingyun, stuttering as if he wanted to say something. Hearing Sun Qiaoer scream, Han Qingyun sneered in his heart. He finally understood that all of this was the young man's trick. Since he understood the problem, and Qingyun could not let Zhang Ming go. Seeing that the Tiangongman's disciple stopped in his tracks, Han Qingyun impatiently waved his hand and said coldly, "Who do you listen to? Hurry up and invite him over. If you can't, I'll hold you accountable." Hearing Han Qingyun's cold words, the Tiangongman's disciple did not dare to stay any longer. He hurriedly turned around and left. Han Qingyun turned around and saw Sun Qiaoer about to chase after him. He hurriedly waved his hand to stop her and said with a smile, "Leader's son, it's just a small matter. There's no need to trouble you to come over personally. If there's anything you want to say, just tell me." Hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Qiaoer said angrily, Tell you? What's the use of telling you? I clearly told you not to invite Prince Zhang over. Why didn't you listen? Han Xingyun smiled and waved his hand. Leader's son, calm down. I'm doing this for your own good. This Prince Zhang is your friend. I invited him to stay with us. I don't have any ill intentions. Why do you care so much? Hurry up and sit down. The competition is about to begin. At this moment, after hearing Han Xingyun's words, Sun Xiaoer did not want to bother with him. She was about to stand up and chase after the Tiangongman's disciple when she suddenly heard Yun Jianbai's voice from the side. Leader's son, it's just changing seats. Moreover, this seat is higher and can see more clearly. Isn't it better to sit here? After hearing Yun Jianbai's words, Sun Xiaoer was stunned. This was originally a matter between him and Han Xingyun. She did not understand why Yun Jianbai was speaking up. Sun Xiaoer indeed did not understand Yun Jianbai's thoughts. However, she did not expect that Yun Jianbai's thoughts were actually the same as Han Xingyun's. Everyone was a master craftsman. Although they did not understand the method of making leather armor, they did not believe that a leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear could display such terrifying defensive power. At this moment, everyone wanted to know how the Tiangongman did it. Although Yun Jianbai did not hear the conversation between Gu Yunfei and Han Xingyun, he only pondered for a moment. After hearing the conversation between Han Xingyun and Sun Xiaoer, he understood. Could it be that this young man was the key? Although Yun Jianbai did not dare to confirm this matter, in order to explore fate and obtain this super technology, he was willing to do anything. Moreover, Han Xingyun only invited this young man over for a chat. Of course, Yun Jianbai knew that Han Xingyun did not invite this young man over just for a chat. If he could obtain some useful information from their conversation, then this trip would not be in vain. After understanding this point, Yun Jianbai supported Han Xingyun in inviting Zhang Meng over. Chapter 381. After hearing Yun Jianbai's words, Han Xingyun sneered and said, Sect leader's son, we don't have any bad intentions. We just want to invite Prince Zhang over for a chat. It's fine, right? Sun Xiaoer said angrily, Sect leader Han, you think too highly of yourself. You didn't allow Prince Zhang to participate in the competition, so he could only sit in the audience. However, even if he sat in the audience, you're still not satisfied. What do you mean by doing this? After hearing Sun Xiaoer's words, Han Xingyun waved his hand nonchalantly. Sect leader's son, we just want to get to know Prince Zhang. It's fine, right? Actually, while Sun Xiaoer and Han Xingyun were talking, the Tiangongman disciple had already run to Zhang Meng's side. Sir, our sect leader would like to invite you to sit over there. Following the direction that Tiangongman disciple was pointing at, Zhang Meng saw Han Xingyun. Zhang Meng smiled and nodded. Then, he stood up and walked towards the judge's table with the Tiangongman disciple. At this moment, Sun Xiaoer was still arguing with Han Xingyun. Suddenly, she turned her head and saw Zhang Meng walking over. Sun Xiaoer looked at Zhang Meng in shock and asked in a trembling voice, why are you here? Seeing this, Zhang Meng waved his hand. Sect leader Han invited me. How can I not come? I have to give him face. Sun Xiaoer took a deep breath and calmed her agitated heart. Then, she asked, You're here? This, before Sun Xiaoer could finish, Zhang Meng waved his hand and interrupted her. It's fine. It's the same wherever I sit. Sect leader's son, don't worry. After saying this, Zhang Meng looked at Sun Xiaoer meaningfully and nodded. Then, he walked in front of Han Xingyun and said with a smile, Sect leader Han, why did you call me here? As the deputy leader of a large sect like the Tiangongman, Han Xingyun still had his own style. Seeing Zhang Meng walk over, Han Xingyun didn't even move from his seat. He waved his hand at Zhang Meng and pointed at the chair beside him. Sit down. I want to ask you a few questions. Zhang Meng nodded with a smile and sat down. Seeing Zhang Meng sit down, Han Xingyun turned to look at Zhang Meng. Suddenly, he slammed the table and said coldly, Where did you come from, brat? How can you be so rude? Do you think you can sit beside me? Hearing Han Xingyun's words, Zhang Meng's smile didn't change. He immediately stood up and carried his chair to the judge's table. Just now, Han Xingyun only wanted to give Zhang Ming a show of strength. He didn't really want him to leave because he still had questions to ask. Seeing that Zhang Ming was about to leave, Han Xingyun slammed the table again and said angrily, "Did I say you could leave?" When Sun Xiaoer saw how rude Han Xingyun was, she was instantly enraged. She stood up and pointed at Han Xingyun, shouting, "Sect Leader Han, what is the meaning of this? You better give me an explanation. If you can't explain it clearly, then there's no need to continue this competition." Hearing Sun Xiaoer's words, Han Xingyun sneered, "Sect Leader's son, if you dare to withdraw from the competition now, this competition will be considered your loss." Hearing Han Xingyun's words, Sun Xiaoer sneered, "Sect Leader Han, you think too highly of yourself. You're not the only one here today. There are so many people in the audience and a few judges. Why don't you ask them if it's my loss if I withdraw from the competition, if you're being unreasonable?" Hearing Sun Xiaoer's words, Han Xingyun's expression froze. Although things wouldn't develop to the extent that Sun Xiaoer said, it would still be bad for the Tiangongmen's reputation. Thinking of this, Han Xingyun coughed and said slowly, "Young master, I was a little harsh with my words just now. I don't blame you anymore. Come back and have a seat. I have something to ask you." Hearing this, Zhang Ming shook his head. "I'm sorry, I have nothing to say to you. I'll sit over there." As he spoke, Zhang Ming had already moved his chair to the other side of the judge's table. Seeing that Zhang Ming was ignoring him, Han Xingyun's face turned pale. He tried hard to take a few deep breaths, and his expression softened slightly. Han Xingyun looked at Zhang Ming, who was sitting on the other side of him. He thought for a moment and whispered a few words to the Tiangongmen disciple beside him. Hearing about Han Xingyun's fate, that disciple of the Heaven's Craftsman sect immediately went to the side and found a few more disciples of the Heaven's Craftsman sect. They all came to Zhang Ming's side and surrounded him tightly. Seeing this, Sun Xiaoer was really angry. She pointed at Zhang Ming, turned to Fan Yin, and asked loudly, "Master Fan, you're the judge. Let me ask you, are you going to interfere in this kind of thing?" The judge's table was only so big. Fan Yin naturally saw the disciples go over. Then, he saw the disciples surround Zhang Ming. Fan Yin was a little angry. After hearing Sun Xiaoer's words, Fan Yin suppressed his anger and stood up abruptly. He said to Han Xingyun, "Master Han, since you invited this young master to sit on the stage, why do you have to go overboard and make everyone laugh at you?" Hearing this, Han Xingyun smiled and said nonchalantly, "Prince Zhang is my guest. Naturally, I have to protect his safety. Is it wrong for me to send people to protect him?" At this point, Han Xingyun turned to look at Sun Xiaoer and said with a smile, "This Prince Zhang doesn't know martial arts at first glance. My master's martial arts are so high. When he attacks later, if the aftershocks hurt Prince Zhang, wouldn't that be bad?" Fan Yin was at a loss for words when he heard Han Xingyun say that it was to protect Zhang Ming. He couldn't find the words to object. Just now, when Gu Yunfei attacked, sand and stones flew everywhere. Even Sun Xiaoer was hit in the face by small grains of sand. At this moment, Han Xingyun said that the disciples were protecting Zhang Ming. Although he knew that it was sophistry, he couldn't do anything about it. Seeing that Zhang Ming was completely blocked, Sun Xiaoer began to worry. She didn't know how Zhang Ming's skill was activated. Naturally, she didn't know where these people were standing and whether they would block Zhang Ming's path. At this moment, Zhang Ming was looking at the path in front of him. Even Sun Xiaoer couldn't see Zhang Ming because she was blocked by those people. Sun Xiaoer was about to say something when Fan Yan's voice suddenly sounded in her ear. "Master Sun, it's better not to say anything. Senior Gu has already started." Hearing Fan Yan's words, Sun Xiaoer was shocked. She turned her head and saw that Gu Yunfei had already taken the saber from Han Yuchao and was walking towards the leather armor. Sun Xiaoer didn't know what Han Xingyun and Gu Yunfei were discussing. The only thing she was sure of was that Han Xingyun and Gu Yunfei must have come up with a new plan. Seeing Gu Yunfei getting closer and closer, Sun Xiaoer's heart rose again. Chapter 382. The competition continued. Gu Yunfei held his level 17 sword and walked to Kikyaman's equipment. Looking at the unscathed surface of the leather armor, he tightened his grip on the sword. Gu Yunfei stood in place and adjusted his breathing. When he felt that he was ready, his eyes suddenly narrowed. In an instant, the dust around him flew up and covered him again. In the dust, Gu Yunfei used all his strength again. The sword in his hand left a long red trail behind it and slashed towards the leather armor in front of him. Triple wave. Gu Yunfei was screaming madly in his heart. Break! Break! After Gu Yunfei's roar, the sword in his hand suddenly turned into a shadow and slashed at the leather armor like lightning. The people in the field only heard a muffled sound. Everyone was really uneasy. Even the ground trembled slightly. After this muffled sound, the smoke and dust seemed to explode and spread out in all directions. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of small pebbles breaking through the air was constantly heard, flying in all directions. This time, Gu Yunfei's strength was too strong. The pebbles were like countless hidden weapons, and the pebbles were sent flying in all directions. Ah, it hurts. Ouch. Oh no, it hit my face. On the competition stage, only Gu Yunfei's area was covered in dust, but after his attack, the dust around him was completely blown away by the powerful force. The area around Gu Yunfei and the leather armor was completely clear, without the slightest bit of dust. The dust on the ground and in the air was blown away in all directions. The judges' table and the audience's stand were filled with dust, and for a moment, it actually blocked the audience's vision. Everyone could only hear someone beside them being hit by a pebble. Wailing sounds could be heard everywhere. After a while, the pebbles flew away and the dust in the air gradually dispersed. Only then did the audience see the situation on the competition stage clearly. On the competition stage, Gu Yunfei stared blankly at the leather armor in front of him, his mind blank. Just now, he had already used his strongest strength and skill, but he was still unable to cause any damage to the leather armor. Gu Yunfei had an absurd thought in his mind. The leather armor in front of him was just an illusion. That was why he couldn't break through its defense. Han Qingyan looked at the situation on the competition stage. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and his heart gradually sank. Level 17 attacks were ineffective. What should he do? The next attack would be a level 18 attack. After dripping spiritual water on his equipment, he estimated that it should be between level 18 and 19. Now that he was level 17, wouldn't the next attack be a dangerous period? Han Qingyan turned his head with difficulty and waved his hand to call the disciples surrounding Zhang Meng over. Unexpectedly, the Tiangongmen disciple looked troubled. He pointed to the other side. He pointed to the other side and said, "Master, they're all injured. They're all injured." What? Hearing this, Han Qingyan stood up abruptly and looked in the direction of Zhang Meng. As expected, there's only Zhang Meng sitting there. The disciples of the Heaven's Craftsman School he sent over have all disappeared. Seeing this, Han Qingyan gritted his teeth and whispered to the Tiangongmen disciple beside him, "Call the injured disciples over. I have something to ask them." Hearing Han Qingyan's order, the Tiangongmen disciple didn't dare to delay. He quickly responded and walked to the back. Not long after, the Tiangongmen disciple led a few injured Tiangongmen disciples over. "Greetings, Vice Sect Master." After the disciples greeted him, Han Qingyan asked in a low voice, "Was it Prince Zhang who injured you?" Hearing this, one of the injured Tiangongmen disciple quickly waved his hand. "No, it was Second Elder who was too strong. The pebbles he threw injured us." Hearing this Tiangongmen disciple's answer, Han Qingyan frowned and asked in a low voice, "Really? You're not lying to me?" That Tiangongmen disciple hurriedly cupped his fists and replied, "How would I dare to lie to you, Vice Sect Master? If you don't believe me, you can ask them." Hearing this Tiangongmen disciple's answer, Han Qingyan was a little annoyed. Just as he was about to ask again, Sun Xiaoer suddenly laughed coldly and said, "Sect Master Han, do you think that Prince Zhang was the one who injured your subordinates?" Hearing this, Han Qingyan laughed coldly and said, "So what? Even if I suspect you, so what? Out of so many people, why are my subordinates the only ones injured while the others are fine? Sect leader's son, can you tell me the reason for this?" Hearing this, Sun Shower laughed and said, "What other reason could there be? Of course it's because they were unlucky." Hearing Sun Shower's words, Han Qingyan was about to say something when Fan Yin suddenly said, "Sect Master Han, I don't think this was done by Prince Zhang. Look." As he spoke, Fan Yin opened his palm for Han Qingyan to see. In Fan Yin's palm, there was a pea-sized pebble. Sect Master Han, under Senior Ji's terrifying strength, if this pebble hit someone else, there would be injuries. Even I felt pain in my palm when I caught this pebble, not to mention others. As for your subordinates, perhaps they were really unlucky and were hit by a few larger pebbles. That's why they were injured. Seeing that Fan Yin was defending Sun Shower, Han Qingyan couldn't say anything more. He thought for a while and gave a few more orders to the Tiangomen disciples beside him. Hearing Han Qingyan's orders, the Tiangomen disciples walked towards Zhang Meng again. Seeing that the disciples had walked to Zhang Meng's side and surrounded Zhang Meng again, Han Qingyan retracted his gaze and turned his attention back to the leather armor. Next would be a level 18 attack. Han Qingyan was thinking about what to do next. Although his master's attack was powerful, it still couldn't break through the leather armor's defense. What should he do? Han Qingyan had a headache. Han Qingyan wasn't sure about the effect of the spirit water. Whether his equipment could withstand a level 18 attack was still uncertain. If this equipment made of deep-sea cold iron and adamantine was destroyed by a level 18 attack, then he would lose this competition completely. What should he do? A level 17 sword, his master's all-out attack, and his master's ultimate skill still couldn't break through the leather armor's defense. Next, a level 18 sword, his master's all-out attack, and his master's ultimate skill still couldn't break through the leather armor's defense, in Han Qingyan's opinion. Since he couldn't break through the opponent's leather armor's defense, then he would lose this competition. Chapter 383. If a level 18 attack still couldn't break through the defense of the opponent's leather armor, wouldn't they lose this match? Han Qingyan wasn't sure if that piece of equipment made of deep-sea frosty iron and adamantine could withstand a level 18 attack. He had been making equipment for decades and had made countless pieces of equipment, but he had never made one before. It could be said that there were very few pieces of equipment that could withstand a level 18 attack. What should he do? Han Qingyan only felt a splitting headache. He didn't feel confident using the deep-sea frosty iron, so he added adamantine to the deep-sea frosty iron. He thought that victory was in his hands, but he didn't expect to still be at a disadvantage. It didn't matter. The Tiangomen were rich, so he would add some spiritual water to increase the defense of this piece of equipment. Han Qingyan only wanted to win. However, after spending so much effort and wasting so many resources, he was still on the verge of losing this match. Han Qingyan's eyes kept darting around as he quickly thought about what to do next to win this match. Looking at the competition ground and seeing Gu Yunfei standing there in a daze, Han Qingyan's eyes suddenly lit up. Now that things had come to this, he could only use this method. Thinking of this, Han Qingyan hurriedly stood up and walked towards Gu Yunfei again. At this moment, Gu Yunfei looked at the leather armor in front of him and didn't know what to do. He had used his strongest strength, a level 17 sword, and his ultimate skill, but he still couldn't break through the defense of this leather armor. What should he do? Most importantly, Gu Yunfei had already heard the people in front of the audience start to talk about him. This made Gu Yunfei blush. As the second elder of the Tiangomen, in this kind of situation, he should have broken the opponent's leather armor with one blow and then enjoyed the admiration of the crowd. However, now that he had used all his skills, he still couldn't do anything to this leather armor. If he had known that this would be the outcome, Gu Yunfei definitely wouldn't have come. The reputation and prestige that he had painstakingly built up over the years had been completely wasted in this short period of time. Not only that, it seemed like he had become a laughingstock. Gu Yunfei only felt a nameless fire burning in his heart that made him feel uncomfortable. Seeing that Han Qingyun was here again, Gu Yunfei did not say a word. He went up and gave him 2 slaps to appease the anger in his heart. The 2 slaps forced Han Qingyun to take 2 steps back before he could regain his balance. Although Han Qingyun knew that Gu Yunfei was angry, there was nothing she could do. She could only cover her face and come before Gu Yunfei. Master, you should calm down first. Now is not the time to be angry. We should think of a way to win this competition as soon as possible. After this competition, even if Master wants to beat this disciple to death, this disciple won't dare to resist. After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei let out a long sigh. Now that things have come to this, I have no other ideas. As you can see, my full strength attack just now was unable to break through the defense of this armor. I really have no other ideas. Speaking of this, Gu Yunfei's tone paused. He suddenly remembered something and asked, "By the way, didn't you just say that there was something wrong with that young man? Did you find out anything?" Han Qingyun shook her head. "No, I didn't find out anything." At this point, Han Qingyun turned his head and glanced at Zhang Meng, who was surrounded by the disciples of the Heaven's Craftsman faction. Before continuing, "I've already ordered people to surround that person, but it still didn't work." After hearing Han Qingyun's answer, Gu Yunfei frowned and said, "So this matter has nothing to do with him?" Hearing this, Han Qingyun shook her head. "I don't know either, but I think that Kikyaman would never be able to make such a heaven-defying equipment. They could only make such equipment with the help of outsiders. During this period of time, other than this Prince Zhang, who is an outsider, there is no other outsider who could possibly help Kikyaman." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei frowned and asked, "Do you mean that the problem still lies with this kid?" Hearing Gu Yunfei's question, Han Qingyun nodded. "Other than this, I really can't think of any other possibility." Speaking of this, Han Qingyun could not help but frown. She pondered for a moment before continuing, "But how did he do it?" Han Qingyun turned to look at Gu Yunfei and asked with some doubt, "Master, you have seen it before. Have you heard of such a magical skill?" After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei could not help but squint his eyes. After thinking carefully for a moment, he shook his head. "No, I have never heard of a skill that can increase the defensive power of equipment." Hearing this, Han Qingyun nodded. "I see. But how'd he do it? How could he make such a big change in a piece of leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear?" At this point, Han Qingyun's eyes suddenly lit up. He abruptly turned his head to look at Gu Yunfei and asked, "Master, do you think this person has something like spirit water? As long as this item is placed on the leather armor, it can increase the defense of the leather armor." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei nodded. "What you said makes sense. Although I've never heard of such a thing, I'm guessing that this leather armor should be made in this way. Otherwise, just relying on the quality of a wild bear's leather armor would definitely not be able to achieve such a defense." Hearing this, Han Qingyun said with some surprise, "Could it be that such a treasure really exists?" Gu Yunfei sighed. "There should be. Even something as miraculous as the spirit water can be found. Others should also have something similar." After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun nodded. After a moment of silence, she said, "The problem now is, even if we know that they use such an item, how much can it increase the defense of the equipment? Could it be that this item has a stronger effect than spirit water?" Speaking of this, a trace of greed appeared in Han Qingyun's eyes. "Master, if we can obtain such an item, then wouldn't it be..." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei's heart also thumped wildly. If his guess was right, there really was such a treasure in this world. If he could obtain this treasure, thinking of this item that could make a wild bear's skin into such a heaven-defying piece of equipment, Gu Yunfei felt his hands tremble slightly. Tying Gongman's spirit water was already a rare treasure. However, compared to such a treasure, it was simply trash. If he could obtain such a treasure and make such a heaven-defying piece of equipment, just thinking about it made him yearn for it. Gu Yunfei turned to look at Han Qingyun and found that Han Qingyun's eyes were also filled with excitement. Chapter 384. Gu Yunfei said, "If there really is such an item, we must get it." At this point, Gu Yunfei's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. "No matter what price we have to pay, we must obtain this item." After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun nodded. "Master, don't worry. I know what to do." After hearing Han Qingyun's answer, Gu Yunfei nodded. "Then what do you plan to do next?" Han Qingyun thought for a moment, then gritted his teeth and said, "No matter what, we must win this competition. Otherwise, it won't be so easy to take over those small sections. They might run over to Kikyaman and go against us." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei frowned. "I'm afraid it won't be easy to win this competition. I used a level 17 sword to attack that leather armor, but you saw the result. It didn't work. If that's the case, even if I use a level 18 sword to attack that leather armor, I might not be able to break through its defense." At this point, Gu Yunfei turned his head and glanced at the equipment made of deep-sea cold iron and fine gold before continuing. "However, although our equipment is made of spirit water, there is a gap of 5 levels between level 13 and level 18. This means that our equipment might not be able to withstand a level 18 attack. If the defense of our equipment is broken and the leather armor's defense is still intact, won't we lose?" After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun cupped his fists and bowed to Gu Yunfei. He then lowered his voice and said, "Master, I came across an item by chance. It's called the Spirit Enhancing Pill. Have you heard of it?" Spirit Enhancing Pill. After hearing this name, Gu Yunfei was shocked. He pointed at Han Qingyun and said angrily, "You unfilial bastard. Do you want me to eat the Spirit Enhancing Pill?" After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun hurriedly cupped his fists and said, "Master, I have no choice. The Spirit Enhancing Pill, after eating one, could immediately double a person's strength. Most importantly, the effect of the Spirit Enhancing Pill was so strong that it could be stacked. After eating one Spirit Enhancing Pill, one's strength would double. If he ate 2 Spirit Boosting Pills, his strength would increase by 2 times. The effect of the Spirit Enhancing Pill could be stacked up to 5 times. In other words, it could increase one's strength by 5 times. After eating the Spirit Boosting Pill, the effect would last for about an hour. The effect of the Spirit Enhancing Pill was powerful, so it was naturally incomparably precious. Even if one had the money, they might not be able to buy it. However, although the effect of the Spirit Enhancing Pill was very strong, it had a flaw. The main purpose of the Spirit Boosting Pill was to stimulate a person's potential within a short period of time. Only then could it double one's strength. The after effects of doubling one's strength were also quite serious. Every time he ate a Spirit Boosting Pill, his vitality would be greatly damaged. At the very least, it would reduce his lifespan by 2 years. If he ate 5 Spirit Enhancing Pills, no matter how many enemies he defeated, 10 years of his lifespan would be gone. Therefore, although most people knew that the Spirit Enhancing Pill could increase one's strength, not many people dared to eat it. Gu Yunfei looked at Han Qingyun in shock and said angrily, "Do you know what the Spirit Boosting Pill is? Do you know what the after effects of eating the Spirit Boosting Pill are?" After hearing Gu Yunfei's question, Han Qingyun nodded silently, then knelt on the ground and said with a trembling voice, "Master, I know. I know what the after effects of eating the Spirit Boosting Pill are." However, this disciple had no other choice. The Heaven's Craftsman faction had to win this competition. Only by winning could the Heaven's Craftsman faction smoothly annex those small factions and make the Heaven's Craftsman faction bigger and stronger. But if we lose, not only will the Tiangongmen not be able to become stronger, we might not even be able to keep our current glory. Hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei was unable to restrain his anger. He went forward and kicked Han Qingyun, causing him to roll on the ground a few times before he could stabilize himself. For your own personal gain, you didn't hesitate to make your master eat such a harmful pill. You! I hate you! How could I have taught such an unfilial disciple like you? Hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun hurriedly crawled back and said with a trembling voice, Master, I don't want to either. If I was strong enough, I definitely wouldn't let you eat the spirit-boosting pill. But I'm weak. Even if I ate 5 spirit-boosting pills, it wouldn't have any effect. Saying this, Han Qingyun kowtowed to Gu Yunfei, then continued, Master, for the Tiangongmen to be able to become stronger, I wouldn't hesitate to give up my life. As long as we win this competition, even if you kill me immediately after we go back, I won't complain at all. Master, I have no choice. For the sake of the Tiangongmen, I beg you, Master, to accept my request. After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei was so angry that he raised his hand and was about to kill Han Qingyun. But his hand fell on Han Qingyun's head and could not go any further. Seeing that his master was about to kill him, Han Qingyun was so scared that he trembled. Just as he was about to run away, he saw Gu Yunfei's hand stop on his head and did not continue to hit him. Han Qingyun hurriedly raised his head and saw that Gu Yunfei's face was already covered in tears. Seeing Gu Yunfei like this, Han Qingyun's tears also flowed down. Master, even if you beat me to death, I won't have the slightest complaint. I only hope that Master will take this spirit-boosting pill for the sake of the Heaven's Craftsman faction's reputation. Then I can die without complaint. After saying this, Han Qingyun raised his head and closed his eyes, waiting for Gu Yunfei to deal with him. Seeing Han Qingyun like this, Gu Yunfei's hand stopped in midair and slowly started to tremble. After a while, Gu Yunfei slowly retracted his hand and suddenly sighed. He muttered to himself, For the sake of the Tiangongmen, I'll spare your life for now. Saying this, Gu Yunfei's voice paused for a while before he continued with a sad tone. Where's the spirit-boosting pill? Give it to me. For the sake of the Tiangongmen, it doesn't matter if I lose a few years of my life. Speaking of this, Gu Yunfei's old tears flowed down his cheeks. He was already very old and didn't have many years left to live. But now, he had to eat the spirit-enhancing pill and reduce his lifespan. How could he not cry bitterly? After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun was immediately overjoyed. He quickly stood up and said, Master, please wait for a moment. I'll send someone to get it. After saying this, Han Qingyun waved to Han Yuchao. When Han Yuchao came in front of him, he leaned over and whispered a few words in his ear. After hearing Han Qingyun's instructions, Han Yuchao did not dare to delay. He hurriedly responded and turned to run out of the field. For such a precious medicine, naturally, he would not be at ease letting an outsider take it. Chapter 385. Gu Yunfei took the bottle of medicine that Han Yuchao handed over. Not only did he feel sorrow in his heart, his tears once again flowed down. Kikyamin's leather armor, which was made from the skin of a wild bear, had pushed him to this point. Sigh. Gu Yunfei let out a long sigh and took out a pill from the bottle. He threw it into his mouth and swallowed it. Seeing that Gu Yunfei had only taken one pill and closed the bottle cap, Han Qingyun felt a little dissatisfied. For Kikyamin's honor, his master should have taken 5 pills in a row. However, Han Qingyun couldn't go up and say this. He could only pray that Gu Yunfei, who had doubled his strength, would be able to break the leather armor. As the 8th disciple of the Medicine King Pavilion, Fan Yin had already recognized what medicine Gu Yunfei had taken the moment he had swallowed it. It was a spirit-enhancing pill. Fan Yin knew very well what a spirit-enhancing pill could do. Anyone who took a spirit-enhancing pill would have their strength doubled. Although the effects of the spirit-enhancing pill were powerful, the side effects were also quite severe. That's right, each spirit-enhancing pill could take away 2 years of your life. Seeing Gu Yunfei take the pill with tears streaming down his face, Fan Yin couldn't help but sigh. At this point in the competition, Fan Yin knew very well why Gu Yunfei had taken the pill. Kikyamin's leather armor, which was made from the skin of a wild bear, had incredible defense. Even a level 17 sword and Gu Yunfei's all-out attack couldn't break through the armor's defense. Looking at the bottle in Gu Yunfei's hand, Fan Yin knew that the Tying Gongman had no other choice. Otherwise, Gu Yunfei wouldn't have taken the spirit-enhancing pill. Fan Yin recognized the spirit-enhancing pill, but Sun Xiaoer, who was from a small sect, didn't. She looked at Gu Yunfei for a while, then turned to Fan Yin. Master Fan, may I ask what pill Gu Yunfei took? Hearing Sun Xiaoer's question, Fan Yin was stunned. He didn't know if he should answer it. After a long while, Fan Yin turned his head to look at Han Qingyan. Seeing that Han Qingyan was not looking in his direction, he lowered his voice and spoke slowly. Sectmaster Sun, if I'm not wrong, Senior Gu ate a spirit-enhancing pill. Spirit-enhancing pill. Sun Xiaoer repeated the name. Suddenly, her eyes widened and she stared at Gu Yunfei. After a long while, she turned to Fan Yin and asked in a low voice, Brother Fan, what about you? Master Fan, the spirit-boosting pill you mentioned, is it the kind of pill that can increase one's strength? Hearing Sun Xiaoer's question, Midnight nodded silently. Seeing Fan Yin nod, Sun Xiaoer immediately covered her mouth in surprise. She looked around and asked in a low voice, I've heard that although the spirit-enhancing pill can increase a person's strength, it can also cause a person's vitality to be greatly damaged. It can even reduce one's lifespan. I wonder if it's true. Hearing Sun Xiaoer's question, Fan Yin sighed. Of course it's true. This pill stimulates a person's potential. It's a combination of highly toxic substances. If a person eats it, their vitality will be greatly damaged and their lifespan will be shortened. Hearing Fan Yin's words, Sun Xiaoer asked in surprise, If that's the case, then why did he eat it? Speaking up to this point, Sun Xiaoer stopped and didn't ask any more questions. Because she already knew why Gu Yunfei ate a pill that could shorten a person's lifespan. Sun Xiaoer sighed in her heart when she understood the reason for the matter. For this competition, Prince Zhang didn't hesitate to sacrifice 3 years of his lifespan to use his ancestral technique to help him win this competition. Now, Gu Yunfei ate a spirit-enhancing pill to defeat Kikyaman. Sun Xiaoer was speechless. She didn't understand why this was happening. Originally, the Tying Gongman and Kikyaman didn't interfere with each other. The Tying Gongman made their metal equipment, while Kikyaman sewed their leather armor. Everyone lived in harmony. However, because the Tying Gongman wanted to take over Kikyaman, they ended up eating random pills. Sigh. Sun Xiaoer could only sigh deeply at this situation. Hearing Sun Xiaoer sigh, Pan Xingyan felt very uncomfortable. Just now, Fan Yin and Sun Xiaoer were whispering. Although he couldn't hear what they were saying, he knew very well what they were talking about. Gu Yunfei was the most conspicuous person in the competition. Everyone probably saw how he ate the pill just now. As a master pharmacist, it wasn't strange that Fan Yin knew about the pill. It was even more strange that Sun Xiaoer asked him about it. However, in Han Qingyun's eyes, this was like a slap to his face. In the competition between the huge Tying Gongman and the small Kikyaman, not only did the Tying Gongman second elder have to be sent out, they even had to rely on pills to increase their strength. If news of this spread, they would definitely become the laughingstock of others. Han Qingyan knew this very well, but he had no other choice. At this point, he could only win this competition and use reality to slap everyone in the face. Although everyone would laugh at the Tying Gongman, so what? Let everyone know the Tying Gongman's strength and the Tying Gongman's determination. There was nothing wrong with this. Just as Han Qingyan was thinking about how to subdue these small sects after winning this competition, Sun Xiaoer, who was beside him, suddenly turned her head and said, Don't worry. Sect Leader Han, I see that this competition is going to be very difficult. Why don't we stop the competition? Hearing Sun Xiaoer's words, Han Qingyun only felt his face burning. An unknown anger suddenly rose in his heart. He turned to look at Sun Xiaoer and said coldly, Sect Leader Sun, do you not dare to continue? Or do you want to admit defeat? Hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Xiaoer was stunned. She quickly said, Sect Leader Han, this competition has already caused both sides to suffer. If we continue, I'm afraid the losses will be even greater. If we shake hands and make peace now, it's still not too late. To be honest, when Sun Shower said this, she really did not have any bad intentions. She just saw that Gu Yunfei was already so old, yet he still had to take that kind of medicine that would shorten his life. She could not bear it in her heart, so she wanted to cancel the competition and make peace. Who knew that not only did Han Qingyun not appreciate her kindness, he even took the initiative to provoke her. Han Qingyun's actions made Sun Shower's heart turn cold. Sun Shower looked at Gu Yunfei in the competition arena and said softly, "Sect leader Han, don't you think that winning this competition is too much?" Hearing Sun Shower's words, Han Qingyun shook his head and said lightly, "As long as I can win this competition, I'm willing to pay any price." After hearing Han Qingyun's answer, Sun Shower shook her head helplessly. "All right then. If you're willing to pay the price, then I have no choice but to continue the competition." Han Qingyun laughed coldly. "Sect leader's son, don't think that Kikyaman can win this competition just because its leather armor can withstand a level 17 attack. Let me tell you, that's impossible. Your Kikyaman will never win." Chapter 386. Seeing that Han Qingyun was about to go berserk, Sun Shower ignored him and turned to look at Zhang Meng. She saw that Zhang Meng was still surrounded by those people. He couldn't even watch the match. Seeing this, Sun Shower sighed. In order to win this match, the Tiangongman Gu Yunfei didn't hesitate to take the pill that would shorten his lifespan. On the other hand, in order to win, Prince Zhang didn't hesitate to sacrifice 3 years of his lifespan to use his mysterious ancestral skill. What was the point of all this? The match continued. Gu Yunfei calmed himself down and slowly took the level 18 saber from Han Yuchao. He walked towards Kikyaman's leather armor. When he reached Kikyaman's leather armor, Gu Yunfei started to circulate his true qi. As soon as his true qi started to circulate, Gu Yunfei felt something different. The surging immortal true qi flowed through his body like a raging sea. Gu Yunfei was shocked. He began to silently chant the mysterious art. This surge of true qi was transferred to his whole body. Finally, it erupted around his body. It rolled up a large amount of dust and once again shrouded Gu Yunfei's body. Sand and dust danced in the air, circling around Gu Yunfei endlessly. In the dust, Gu Yunfei circulated his true qi to his hands. In an instant, the saber in Gu Yunfei's hand glowed brightly at the tip of the saber. Gu Yunfei looked at the gleam on the tip of the saber and sighed in his heart. Before he took the pill, the gleam on the tip of the saber was red. It was a faint red, but now it was different. The gleam on the tip of the saber was brighter and brighter. Gu Yunfei let his body quickly move around. Feeling this powerful true qi, Gu Yunfei suddenly roared towards the sky. Break! Following his roar, Gu Yunfei's saber slashed towards the leather armor in front of him. When Gu Yunfei chopped down with the saber, the dust in the air suddenly stopped. Following a muffled sound, the dust in the air once again erupted in all directions. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the moment of the eruption of smoke and dust, countless small air-piercing sounds rang in everyone's ears. Everyone was so shocked that they hurriedly hid under the table. Everyone was hiding under the table. They felt the vibrations coming from the table and heard the sound of dust hitting the table. They couldn't help but be shocked. Gu Yunfei's attack this time was so violent that even Sun Shower was no exception. Seeing that the situation was not right, she lowered her body and hid under the table. As time passed, screams could be heard all around. Sun Shower was overwhelmed with shock. She never thought that after Gu Yunfei ate the spirit-enhancing pill, the effects would be so obvious. The attack this time was clearly much stronger than the previous one. Last time, when the sand from the dust hit his face, he only felt pain. This time, through the vibration of the table, Sun Shower was sure that if she was hit by the sand brought by the dust, she would definitely be injured. The process of dust flying everywhere actually only took a very short time. A moment later, Sun Shower could no longer hear the sound of sand flying past. Seeing that there was no more sand flying past, Sun Shower was about to crawl out of the table when she heard Gu Yunfei's sorrowful shout from the arena. How is this possible? Why hasn't it broken yet? Hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Sun Shower's nervous heart instantly relaxed. She knew that her leather armor had withstood a level 18 attack again. Sun Shower sat back down in her seat and looked at Gu Yunfei, who was in a daze. She was not only relieved, but also shocked. Although the testing knife was a level 18 knife, with Gu Yunfei's terrifying strength, it was not as simple as level 18. In addition to the spirit-enhancing pill that Gu Yunfei had just eaten, he had probably passed the level 20 test. Thinking of level 20, Sun Shower only felt her heart beat faster. Ever since Sun Shower started crafting equipment, she had come into contact with many pieces of equipment. What kind of equipment could withstand a level 20 attack? Sun Shower had never even thought about this question. For leather armor, being able to withstand a level 10 attack was already considered quite strong. But now, this leather armor had actually withstood a level 20 attack. Sun Shower did not expect that Zhang Ming's family's ultimate skill would be so terrifying. If anyone could wear this kind of armor, even an expert like Gu Yunfei would not be able to do anything to them. Gu Yunfei looked at the leather armor in front of him that was still intact after being attacked violently. He felt like crying. He had used all his strength, but still could not break the defense of this leather armor. In order to restore the reputation of the Tiangongmen, he did not hesitate to reduce his lifespan by 2 years and eat the spirit-enhancing pill that was both loved and hated. But still, the defense of this leather armor was not broken. How could this be? How could the defense of this leather armor be so strong? Could it be that he had to eat 5 spirit-enhancing pills for it to break? 5 spirit-enhancing pills would reduce his lifespan by 10 years. Thinking of 10 years of lifespan, Gu Yunfei's tears fell again. No, I can't eat anymore. I've already reduced my lifespan by 2 years. If I eat 4 more pills, I'll be in trouble. 10 years of lifespan. How many 10 years does a person have in their lifetime? No, I haven't enjoyed enough in this world. With these 10 years, I'll be able to enjoy a lot of good food and wine. Thinking of this, Gu Yunfei made up his mind. This time, he would definitely not eat any more pills. Seeing that Kikyamin's leather armor was still intact, Han Qingyun's heart sank. The Tiangongmen's armor had withstood a level 18 attack. Now, it was his turn to face the challenge of a level 18 attack. To be honest, Han Qingyun was not confident that his armor could withstand a level 18 attack. The original plan was that the armor could withstand a level 13 attack. After being strengthened by the spiritual water, Han Qingyun estimated that it could withstand a level 18 attack at most. Han Qingyun didn't dare blink his eyes as he watched the female Kikyamin disciple, afraid that he would miss out on any details. As the female Kikyamin disciple raised the level 18 blade higher and higher, Han Qingyun's heart started to beat faster and faster. Han Qingyun didn't even dare breathe loudly, as he was afraid that he would increase the power of the level 18 blade. As he watched the level 18 blade rise above his head, Han Qingyun suddenly felt an urge to shout for it to stop. Han Qingyun was really scared. The moment the blade was chopped down would be the most crucial moment. If the blade destroyed the armor, the Tiangongmen's reputation would be completely ruined. If the Tiangongmen's reputation was ruined, it wouldn't matter. They could slowly rebuild it. However, Han Qingyun's position as the deputy sect master would really come to an end. Han Qingyun was certain that many precious materials had been used for this competition. Even the sect's most precious spiritual water had been used. Chapter 387. For this competition, Han Qingyun had already used his limited amount of deep-sea cold iron, precious gold essence, and priceless spirit water. If he still failed after using so many precious materials, Han Qingyun was sure that if he failed, he would only be able to hold on to his position as the vice sect leader for 2 more days before he was fired. After working so hard for so many years, how could Han Qingyun be willing to give up this position? Why did Han Qingyun organize this competition? It was because he wanted a challenge for the position of sect leader. If he succeeded, he would be able to take in a large number of smaller sects and expand the strength of the Tiangongmen. This would be equivalent to expanding the Tiangongmen's power by a lot. With this kind of contribution, Han Qingyun believed that the position of sect leader would be his sooner or later. But now, an unknown Kikyaman had actually chased him to this extent. The female disciple of the Heaven's Craftsman sect slowly raised the level, 18 saber, above her head. When she reached the highest point, she looked at the equipment of the Heaven's Craftsman sect in front of her and suddenly widened her eyes. With a loud roar, she used all her strength to draw a semicircle in the air with the saber she had raised above her head and hacked at the equipment. Ding! The female Tiangongmen disciple retracted her sword and looked at the equipment. When she saw it clearly, she was overjoyed. Sect leader, I've created another mark. I've created another mark on the Tiangongmen's equipment. Huh. Looking at the female Tiangongmen disciple who was laughing at the sky, Sun Shower's eyes lit up. This time, she had created a mark on the Tiangongmen's equipment. Then, she would most likely be able to break through the equipment's defense next time. Thinking of this, Sun Shower took out her handkerchief and wiped the sweat from her forehead due to her nervousness. A smile appeared on her face. Smelling the fragrance on Sun Shower's handkerchief and seeing the smile on her face, Han Qingyun suddenly felt like he was being mocked. Although Sun Shower wasn't looking at him, Han Qingyun had this feeling. Sun Shower was mocking him, mocking his incompetence, mocking him for being blind, mocking him for overestimating himself. Seeing the smile on Sun Shower's face, Han Qingyun suddenly slammed the table and said coldly, "You want to defeat me? Don't even think about it." After saying this, Han Qingyun suddenly stood up and walked towards Gu Yunfei. Sun Shower was a little confused as she watched Han Qingyun leave her seat. She knew that Han Qingyun had gone to find Gu Yunfei to discuss a solution. But now that things had come to this, what good solution could they come up with? Seeing Han Qingyun walking over, Gu Yunfei no longer had any thoughts of beating him up. That was because it was already meaningless. At this point, Gu Yunfei already couldn't think of any way to break through the leather armor's defense. As for the problem of taking medicine, Gu Yunfei had already thought it through. He absolutely could not take it anymore. It was better for him to enjoy the 10 years than to waste it here. Gu Yunfei had even planned that as long as he left this place, he would immediately travel around and enjoy these wonderful 10 years. Han Qingyun came in front of Gu Yunfei. Without saying anything, he first knelt down and kowtowed 3 times, saying sincerely, "Master, you are willing to take the spirit-boosting pill for the sake of the Tiangongmen's reputation. Your disciple's heart is filled with admiration. I can't wait to take the spirit-boosting pill for you as a disciple to repay your kindness in teaching me." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei stretched out his hand and helped him up. He sighed, "Qingyun, I think we should forget about this competition. That leather armor is too strange. In my opinion, to break through the defense of that leather armor is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. In my opinion, why don't we have a good talk with sect leader Sun about this competition? Why don't we call it a draw? This way, our sect's treasure, the Heaven and Earth Cauldron, won't be lost to Kikyaman as a prize. If we do this, our losses won't be too great. Although we'll waste a few drops of spirit water, I'll speak up for you. Don't take it to heart." As soon as Gu Yunfei finished speaking, Han Qingyun hurriedly said, "Master, you mustn't do that. If we say we want to call it a draw now and outsiders find out, they'll laugh at us. They'll think that we Tiangongmen are afraid of Kikyaman. Master, you mustn't do this. You mustn't make peace." When Gu Yunfei heard this, he sighed. "It's not that I want to make peace. It's just that we really have no way of breaking through Kikyaman's leather armor's defense." After hearing Gu Yunfei's answer, Han Qingyun hesitated for a moment before probing, "Master, how many spirit-boosting pills did you take just now?" When Gu Yunfei heard this, he raised a finger and sighed, "I took 1 spirit-boosting pill just now." Unfortunately, it didn't work. I still couldn't break through the leather armor's defense. After hearing Gu Yunfei's answer, Han Qingyun gritted his teeth and said softly, "Master, I think you should take all of them. Then you'll be able to increase your strength by 5 times. You should be able to, Before Han Qingyun could finish speaking, Gu Yunfei slapped him 2 to 3 meters away. Gu Yunfei quickly walked in front of Han Qingyun, grabbed him by his clothes, and lifted him up. He said angrily, "Han Qingyun, do you know that eating 5 spirit-enhancing pills will reduce your lifespan by 10 years? Open your dog eyes and see how many years your master has left to live." When he heard his master's words, Han Qingyun was shocked. If Gu Yunfei didn't take the pills, with his current strength, he definitely wouldn't be able to break through the leather armor. Thinking of this, Han Qingyun hurriedly squeezed out a few drops of tears and said with a choked voice, "Master, I shouldn't have made such an unreasonable request. However, I have no other choice. For the sake of the Tiangongmen's reputation, I'm willing to go through fire and water for the Tiangongmen. Even if I die, I won't regret it. If I was strong enough, I definitely wouldn't ask you to take these pills. However, I'm not strong enough. Even if I took all these pills, I'm afraid I won't be able to catch up to your current strength. It would be a waste of these pills. Master, you've seen that most of the small sects are supporting Kikyaman. If we lose this time, not only will the Tiangongmen not be able to increase their strength, I'm afraid that the Tiangongmen's original disciples will become restless. I'm afraid that they'll leave the Tiangongmen and join Kikyaman. When that happens, you and I will become the sinners of the Tiangongmen. We'll never be able to raise our heads again. If the Tiangongmen continue to decline because of this, I'm afraid that we won't be able to survive even 100 deaths. Master, we have to think of a way." After saying this, Han Qingyun secretly glanced at Gu Yunfei. Seeing that his face was still angry, he hurriedly said, "Master, I won't let you down. Master, I won't implicate you. Please give me the medicine. I'll take these spirit-enhancing pills and test them myself." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei was stunned and asked, "But even if you take them, it won't be of any use." Chapter 388. After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun said sadly, "Master, now that things have come to this, there's no other way. For the reputation of the Tiangongmen, I can only take the risk and try." Gu Yunfei sighed. "With your martial arts, even if you take the spirit-enhancing pill, I'm afraid your abilities are still far from enough." Han Qingyun heard this and sighed. "For the reputation of the Tiangongmen, I'm prepared to take 10 spirit-enhancing pills to test the effects. If it succeeds, there should still be a chance to try." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei's heart trembled violently. 10 spirit-enhancing pills would reduce one's lifespan by 20 years. He did not expect that Han Qingyun would be willing to take 10 spirit-enhancing pills for the reputation of the Tiangongmen. Looking at Han Qingyun's tear-stained face, Gu Yunfei suddenly felt a little ashamed. They were both disciples of the Tiangongmen, and he was also Han Qingyun's master. However, at this crucial moment, as a master, his awareness was not as high as Han Qingyun's. Thinking of this, Gu Yunfei's heart moved a little. He had just taken 1 spirit-enhancing pill and had already reduced his lifespan by 2 years. If he continued to take pills, he would only need to take 4 more. In this way, it would only reduce his lifespan by 8 years. Thinking of this, Gu Yunfei's heart began to hesitate. For the reputation of the Tiangongmen, was it worth it to reduce his lifespan by 10 years? If he had 10 more years of lifespan, how many benefits would he enjoy? Gu Yunfei repeatedly pondered between these two thoughts. One thought was for him to give up on this place and quickly enjoy life. The other thought was for the reputation of the Tiangongmen. So what if he had to reduce his lifespan by 10 years? Furthermore, Han Qingyun was willing to reduce his lifespan by 20 years for the reputation of the Tiangongmen. However, looking at Han Qingyun's shiny black hair, Gu Yunfei's heart began to hesitate again. Han Qingyun was much younger than him. Even if he reduced his lifespan by 20 years, he could still live for a long time. However, if he reduced his lifespan by 10 years, he really did not have many years left to live. Looking at his temples and his white hair, Gu Yunfei's heart became even more hesitant. Should he take the pill for the sake of the Tiangongman's honor? Or should he leave this place and enjoy himself for a while longer? Han Qingyun stood to the side, his eyes secretly sizing up Gu Yunfei's face. Han Qingyun was very clear that even if he ate 10 strength-boosting pills, it would not have any effect. Moreover, he had no intention of eating this strength-boosting pill. The reason why he said this was only for Gu Yunfei to hear. Han Qingyun knew that if he said that, with Gu Yunfei's temper, there was an 80% to 90% chance that he would not let him eat the strength-enhancing pill, and would choose to eat it himself. Asking Han Qingyun to take a spirit-boosting pill was just a rumor. It definitely couldn't be taken seriously. As the vice-sect head of the Heaven's Craftsman faction, he was second only to one person and above all. How could Han Qingyun take a spirit-boosting pill? Looking at Gu Yunfei's face, Han Qingyun was very calm at first. But after a while, he saw that Gu Yunfei was still hesitating. He didn't seem to want to eat the pill at all. Han Qingyun knew that if he continued to hesitate like this, Gu Yunfei might think it through and let him eat the spirit-strengthening pill. That would be terrible. Thinking of this, Han Qingyun immediately cried and kowtowed 3 times to his master. He said in a trembling voice, "Master, please give me the spirit-strengthening pill. I will eat it immediately and break Kikyaman's leather armor. I will raise the prestige of the Tiangongman." Saying this, Han Qingyun secretly looked at Gu Yunfei's face. He then continued, "Master, for the sake of the Tiangongman's honor, please give the spirit-strengthening pill to me. For the sake of the Tiangongman, I will not complain even if I have to die immediately. If 10 spirit-strengthening pills are not enough, then I will eat 20. In short, I must win this competition." Hearing Han Qingyun's pleading, Gu Yunfei sighed. What's the point of eating more spirit-enhancing pills? It's just a waste of your lifespan. Have you forgotten that you can only eat 5 spirit-enhancing pills at most? After that, it's useless no matter how many you eat. After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun immediately beat his chest and stamped his feet. "Master, I don't believe you. I want to try. Maybe after eating 5 pills, the effect will be the same. Master, I believe that the ancestors of the Tiangongman will bless me and make the spirit-strengthening pill even stronger. Even if I eat more than 5 pills, there will still be an effect." Seeing Han Qingyun pleading so pitifully, Gu Yunfei couldn't help but furrow his brows even more. What should he do? Should he let Han Qingyun eat 10 spirit-strengthening pills, or should he eat 4? Gu Yunfei felt that the world was spinning. This choice was killing him. Just now, he had decided that he definitely couldn't take any more pills. He still wanted to save his remaining life, to enjoy the things that he should enjoy. However, seeing Han Qingyun like this, for the sake of the Tiangongman's honor, he wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice himself. Seeing Han Qingyun's spirit, Gu Yunfei's thoughts started to come to life again. His own inner strength was strong. Even if he ate 5 spirit-strengthening pills, he might lose 10 years of his life. However, with his strong inner strength, he might be able to recover it. Once this idea arose in his mind, Gu Yunfei started to follow it. There were so many treasures in this world. Even if he lost 10 years of his life, he should be able to recover it by eating some treasures. With those treasures and his strong inner strength, he should be able to make up for those losses. If this really worked, it would be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only would he be able to win glory for the Tiangongman, but he would also be able to increase his reputation. He would let the Tiangongman disciples see that he, the second elder of the Tiangongman, was willing to sacrifice his life for the sake of the Tiangongman's honor. Han Qingyun saw his master's eyebrows twitching and was secretly delighted. Based on his understanding of Gu Yunfei, he could already confirm that Gu Yunfei was moved. If there were no accidents, he believed that Gu Yunfei would agree to take those pills and work for the Tiangongman very soon. Indeed, just as Han Qingyun thought, not long after, he heard Gu Yunfei's loud laughter. Hearing this laughter, Han Qingyun was instantly overjoyed. He knew that he had succeeded in getting Gu Yunfei to take the pills. To be honest, Han Qingyun knew much more about the spirit-strengthening pill than Gu Yunfei. One spirit-strengthening pill could reduce a person's life by 2 years. This was definitely not a lie. In fact, it was a little understated. The effect of the growth pill was to stimulate one's life potential to double one's strength. Gu Yunfei thought that by eating some spiritual pills and practicing his inner strength, he should be able to recover his lost life. However, he was wrong. After eating the growth pill, the loss of life was irreversible. Chapter 389. Consuming one spirit-enhancing pill would reduce one's lifespan by 2 years. This was just a general concept. The damage caused by the spirit-enhancing pill to the body was quite serious. If one ate 5 spirit-enhancing pills in a row, their body would be in a mess, and they would lose more than 10 years of their lifespan. Every time he ate an additional spirit-enhancing pill, the damage it caused his body was not as simple as 1 + 1. If it were that simple, wouldn't everyone be eating the spirit-enhancing pill? If Han Qingyun really ate 10 spirit-enhancing pills, he would probably become a cripple after the effects wore off. It was precisely because of this that not many people dared to try the spirit-enhancing pill, even though they knew how powerful it was. Gu Yunfei laughed heartily for a while. When he lowered his head, his eyes were already filled with tears. He patted Han Qingyun's shoulder and said with a smile, "You're not strong enough. Even if you eat 10 spirit-enhancing pills, there won't be much of an effect. Furthermore, after 5 pills, there won't be any more effects. You'd better go back to the judge's table. I'll eat the spirit-enhancing pill." After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun's heart was already blooming with joy. However, on the surface, he squeezed out a few more tears. "Master, it's all my fault. I'm too weak and can't share your burden. Please punish me." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei sighed. "Hurry up and go back. I'll be fine here." As he looked at Gu Yunfei's aged face, Han Qingyun couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Once Gu Yunfei ate all 5 pills, the side effects of the spirit-enhancing pill would immediately take effect. No one knew what would happen to Gu Yunfei then. Gu Yunfei thought for a while before turning to look at Gu Yunfei. He sighed and said slowly, "Master, you're willing to eat the spirit-enhancing pill for the sake of the Tiangongmen. I'm very impressed." After saying this, Han Qingyun paused for a while before continuing, "Master, I want to say that you don't have to eat all 5 pills at once." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei subconsciously glanced at the Tiangongmen's equipment made of deep-sea cold iron and fine gold. He sighed. "I'm afraid it won't work. With the defense of your equipment, I'm afraid it won't be able to withstand a level 19 attack. Once Kikyaman breaks through our defenses, we'll lose this match." After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun shook his head. "Master, I'm going to use some more spiritual water to strengthen the defense of that equipment." "What?" After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei was stunned. "What did you say? Do you know what you were saying?" When Han Qingyun heard this, he nodded and said in a sorrowful tone, "Master, your disciple couldn't bear to see you eat 5 spirit-enhancing pills in one go. That was the first time." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei's heart suddenly felt warm. His disciple was still the best. She was afraid that he would take too much medicine, so she didn't hesitate to use the spiritual water of the Tiangongmen to slow down his consumption of medicine. Thinking of this, Gu Yunfei started to hesitate. He was also very clear that it was best to take as little of a spirit-enhancing pill as possible. If he took 5 pills in one go, it would lead to bad consequences. That would be terrible. Of course, it would be best to take 1 pill at a time. However, he was afraid that the Tiangongmen's equipment wouldn't be able to withstand it. Both parties had already passed level 18. Gu Yunfei estimated that the effect of the spiritual water just now was between level 18 and 19. This meant that the Taiangolman's equipment made of deep-sea cold iron and fine gold might not be able to withstand a level 19 attack, and its defense would be broken. If that was the case, wouldn't his consumption of the spirit-enhancing pills be in vain? However, the Taiangolman only had 21 drops of spiritual water in total. They had already used 5 drops just now. If they used 5 more drops of spiritual water, they would have used up 10 drops of spiritual water in total. This was already the total amount of spiritual water that the Taiangolman had. Most importantly, no one knew if the effects of the second use of these 5 drops of spiritual water would still be as strong as the first use. The first time he used the spiritual water, every drop of spiritual water could increase his defense by 10%. The second time he used the spiritual water, no one knew whether the effect was stronger or weaker. This was because no one would be so extravagant as to use 10 drops of spiritual water in one go on a piece of equipment. 10 drops of spiritual water. Gu Yunfei's heart ached when he thought of this number. However, if he didn't use it, he would have to take 5 spirit-enhancing pills in one go. Gu Yunfei hesitated again when he thought of the side effects of the spirit-enhancing pills. Seeing Gu Yunfei's hesitation, Han Qingyun sighed. "Master, I'll make the decision on this matter. If anyone investigates, this disciple will bear all responsibility. Master should stick to the original plan and take the spirit-strengthening pills one by one." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei nodded silently and said, "All right then. If the sect leader investigates this matter, I'll bear the consequences with you." Seeing that Gu Yunfei had agreed, Han Qingyun waved at Han Yuchao again. When Han Yuchao came closer, he whispered a few words to him, and Han Yuchao ran out of the competition venue, as if he was flying. Sun Xiaoer was shocked when she saw Han Qingyun's performance in front of Gu Yunfei. Han Qingyun kowtowed and bowed, while Gu Yunfei kicked and hit him. In the end, the two of them cried bitterly together. Although Sun Xiaoer knew that the two of them were up to no good, she still couldn't bear to see them like this. Sun Xiaoer didn't have much ambition. She only wanted to lead the disciples of Kikyaman and live a peaceful life. At this moment, Sun Xiaoer couldn't understand why Han Qingyun was thinking of all kinds of bad ideas in order to win this competition. There was nothing wrong with shaking hands and making peace. By doing this, they wouldn't have to hurt each other, and Han Qingyun wouldn't have to be in such a difficult position. Most importantly, the Taiangolman had already sacrificed too much for this competition. If this continued, the Taiangolman might have to pay a heavy price. Seeing that Han Qingyun had returned, Sun Xiaoer couldn't hold it in any longer. After Han Qingyun sat down, Sun Xiaoer said softly, "Sect Leader Han, I think this competition shouldn't continue. But Senior has already eaten a spirit-enhancing pill. That kind of pill isn't good for people, and I heard that it can even shorten one's lifespan. Sect Leader Han, why do you have to do this? As long as we make peace, we can pretend that this competition never happened. Isn't that great?" When Han Qingyun heard Sun Xiaoer's good intentions, he felt that Sun Xiaoer's words were like a slap to his face. He was so ashamed that he couldn't show his face. Would the great Taiangolman negotiate with a small sect like Kikyaman? If news of this got out, the Taiangolman wouldn't have the face to take in other small sections. Chapter 390. Moreover, Han Qingyun had already made preparations. Gu Yunfei would eat the spirit-enhancing pill and then use the spirit water to increase the defense of his equipment. With these two preparations, Han Qingyun felt that there was no reason for him to lose. Regardless of whether the effects of the spirit water were strengthened or weakened, Han Qingyun estimated that 5 drops of spirit water would at least increase the defense of this armor to level 21. Would Kikyaman's leather armor, which was made from the skin of a wild bear, be able to withstand an attack above level 20? Han Qingyun thought about it and felt that it was unlikely. No matter how good the leather armor was, it was only leather armor. If it could reach level 19, it should have reached its limit. Perhaps the next attack would be able to break through Kikyaman's defense in one fell swoop. Moreover, Gu Yunfei would eat a spirit-enhancing pill every time he attacked, doubling his strength. Han Qingyun believed that even if Kikyamin's leather armor was made from the skin of a dragon, it would not be able to withstand so many attacks. Thinking of this, Han Qingyun turned to look at Sun Xiaoer and sneered. Sect leader's son, as the leader of a sect, don't you know the rules? Hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Xiaoer was stunned. She asked curiously, rules? What rules? Han Qingyun sneered. In a competition between two sects, there must be a winner. Unless one side concedes defeat, the competition must continue. Speaking of this, Han Qingyun gritted his teeth and said fiercely, Sect leader's son, our competition today is the same. Unless one side concedes defeat, the competition must continue until there is a winner. Hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Xiaoer subconsciously looked at Gu Yunfei, and a surprised expression appeared on her face. After a while, Sun Xiaoer pointed at Gu Yunfei and turned to look at Han Qingyun. Her voice trembled as she said, Sect leader Han, why must we continue the competition? Can't you see that Senior Gu is taking the medicine that can shorten his life? Speaking of this, Sun Xiaoer took a deep breath and calmed her somewhat agitated mood before continuing. Sect leader Han, I heard that Senior Gu is your master. Aren't you going to persuade your master to take that medicine? It's really not good for him to take too much of it. After hearing Sun Xiaoer's words, Han Qingyun clapped her hands, following which a cold smile appeared on her face. Sect Master Sun, is it because the defense of your equipment is reaching its limit? Is that why you're using my master as an excuse to stop this match? Speaking of this, Han Qingyun paused for a moment, then continued in a more serious tone. Sect leader's son, he said, Sect leader Han, I won't be fooled by you. No matter what you say, I'm not going to stop the competition, unless you admit defeat. Otherwise, it's impossible to stop the competition. After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Xiaoer was so angry that she opened her mouth wide and stared at Han Qingyun. After a long while, she slowly sighed. Sect leader Han, since you think that I'm looking for an excuse, then I won't say anything. However, Senior Gu is your master after all. It's better that you advise him not to take that kind of medicine anymore. Han Qingyun sneered. Sect leader's son, you don't have to worry. As long as Sect leader's son can join the Tiangongmen after losing this competition, it'll be worth it even if my master takes a few pills. Hearing this, Sun Xiaoer asked in shock, is it really worth it? Han Qingyun sneered, of course it's worth it. Kikyamin's equipment manufacturing technology is practically a miracle in my eyes. If Sect leader Sun joins our sect, then this miracle will become the Tiangongmen's technology. As long as the Tiangongmen obtain this technology, I'm willing to pay any price. Speaking up to this point, Han Qingyun paused for a moment before continuing. Not only am I willing to pay any price, but the most important thing is that we Tiangongmen can also afford it. Speaking up to this point, Han Qingyun pointed at Han Yuchao, who was running back from outside the competition area, and smiled. Sect leader's son, I won't hide it from you. Did you see that? I asked someone to bring 5 drops of spirit water. As long as I pour these 5 drops of spirit water on my equipment's defense will immediately increase by 50%. Sect leader's son, do you think that Kikyamin can still defeat us with this additional 50% defense of my equipment? Hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Xiaoer instantly sucked in a breath of cold air. She only knew that Han Qingyun and Gu Yunfei were discussing something bad, but she didn't expect it to be this bad. The Tiangongmen's equipment, which was made from deep-sea cold iron and fine gold, was already on the verge of collapse when it was at level 13. However, after the spirit water was poured on it, it immediately persevered until level 18, and its defense was still not broken. If the spirit water was poured on top of that, wouldn't it mean that it could persevere until level 20? Thinking up to this point, Sun Xiaoer's breathing quickened. There were 2 problems that she had to consider. The first problem was that Prince Zhang had once said that this ancestral skill of his had a time limit. The competition had already been going on for so long. Was the time limit for Prince Zhang's ancestral skill up? The second problem was that although Prince Zhang's ancestral skill was powerful, no one dared to say whether it could withstand a level 20 attack. Gu Yunfei's martial arts were outstanding, and his skills were not to be underestimated. Gu Yunfei's full power attack, coupled with a level 20 sword, could probably cause damage at level 23. The most important thing was that Gu Yunfei had taken medicine. Every time he took a spirit-enhancing pill, his skills would double. If this continued, how terrifying would Gu Yunfei's strength be when he ate the fifth spirit-enhancing pill? His leather armor must have been able to withstand such a powerful attack. Thinking up to this point, cold sweat broke out on Sun Qiao's forehead. The best way to solve this problem was for both sides to come to an agreement. Sun Qiao didn't want to lose. If she lost, according to the contract, she would have to join the Tiangongmen and work for the Tiangongmen. It was precisely because Sun Qiao didn't want to join the Tiangongmen that the two sides had this competition. Thinking that her leather armor would have to withstand such a terrifying attack, Sun Qiao couldn't sit still anymore. She stood up abruptly and wanted to ask Zhang Ming how many levels of attacks this leather armor could withstand after using his ancestral skill. Sun Qiao had just stood up when she heard Han Qingyun's voice in her ear. "Clan leader son, are you afraid? Are you thinking of running away?" After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Qiao, who was in a mess, finally came to her senses. She definitely couldn't go to Zhang Ming. If she went to Zhang Ming and asked him this question, Han Qingyun would definitely find out that something was wrong. With Han Qingyun's temper, as long as he found out that Zhang Ming was the cause of the problem, Sun Qiao was sure that Han Qingyun would definitely chase Zhang Ming out of the competition grounds. The problem was that once Zhang Ming left the competition grounds, Chapter 391. What Sun Qiao was worried about was what if Zhang Ming's ancestral skill lost its effect when he left the arena. Sun Qiao was certain that once Prince Zhang's skill lost its effect, her leather armor would be smashed into pieces in the blink of an eye. Thinking of this, Sun Qiao took a deep breath and calmed her chaotic emotions. Then, she slowly sat back down on her seat. Seeing Sun Qiao sit back down, Han Qingyun suddenly sneered. He gritted his teeth and said, "Leader son, I don't care how heaven-defying your equipment is. No matter what, I will destroy your equipment today and show everyone here that we, the Tiangongmen, are not to be trifled with." Sun Qiao turned to look at Han Qingyun and asked, "Is defeating our Kikyamen really that important to you?" Hearing Sun Qiao's question, Han Qingyun sneered, "It might not have been important in the past, but it's different now. You have such amazing crafting skills. In my eyes, your Kikyamen is very different." At this point, Han Qingyun's eyes suddenly flashed with madness. "If I obtain this amazing crafting skill, the Tiangongmen will become even stronger in my hands." Seeing Han Qingyun's crazy eyes, Sun Qiao was shocked. She quickly turned her head away from him. Han Yuqiao poured 5 drops of spiritual water on the equipment. A moment later, the equipment burst out with a white light again. Seeing this white light, Han Qingyun was completely relieved. As long as this white light appeared, the armor's defense would increase again. The white light that flashed on the armor almost blinded Yun Jinbai's eyes. Spiritual water. The Tiangongmen poured spiritual water on the equipment again. Yun Jinbai's heart ached when he thought of the 5 drops of spiritual water on the equipment. Although the equipment's materials were good, in the eyes of these master craftsmen, it was still far from the best materials. If the spiritual water was used on the best materials, wouldn't it be even more effective? If this spirit water was poured onto a top-grade treasure sword, the quality of this treasure sword would immediately undergo a tremendous change. It was even possible for it to become a famous sword. Looking at the Tiangongmen pouring out spiritual water like pouring cold water, Yun Jinbai could no longer hold it in. He turned his head to look at Han Qingyun and asked tentatively, "Sect Leader Han, can I discuss something with you?" Looking at Yun Jinbai's mysterious eyes, Han Qingyun nodded. "Brother Yun, There's no need to be so polite between us. If there's anything you need, just say the word. As long as I can do it, I'll definitely help you. Hearing Han Qingyun's words, Yun Jianbai did not dare to relax. He hurriedly cupped his fists and said, Sect Leader Han, I see that the Tiangongmen have a lot of spiritual water. Can you sell some to us? When Yun Jianbai saw that Han Qingyun's face had suddenly turned ugly, he hurriedly added, Sect Leader Han, don't worry. The price is negotiable. If you don't want money, the materials are fine too. As long as you're willing to sell me the spiritual water, you can name the price. I won't bargain. After hearing Yun Jianbai's words, Han Qingyun took a deep breath and slowly said, Brother Yun, if you want something else as your brother, I definitely won't refuse. As for the spiritual water, there's no need to talk about it. Although he had already guessed that Han Qingyun would refuse, after hearing Han Qingyun's refusal, Yun Jianbai still felt a little awkward. He hurriedly apologized and hurriedly returned to his seat before he could say anything else. Yun Jianbai also knew that this matter should not be mentioned. However, seeing the Tiangongmen continuously using the spiritual water, Yun Jianbai was too envious and did not want to try his luck. Unfortunately, he was not lucky enough to encounter it. Instead, he was met with a nose full of dust. When Yet Tianhao saw that Yun Jianbai had regained his composure, he could not help but ask softly with an awkward expression, Great Master Yun, I heard you and Sect Leader Han talking about the spiritual water just now. What is the spiritual water? Is it very important? Hearing Yet Tianhao's question, Yun Jianbai sighed and said softly, It is indeed very important. Did you see the potion that young master he poured on his equipment? After Yun Jianbai's reminder, Nie Tianhao suddenly remembered that after Han Yuchao poured the potion, his equipment had emitted a white light. Thinking of this, Nie Tianhao recalled what had happened just now. His heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly asked in a low voice, Great Master Yun, can that potion increase the defensive power of equipment? Hearing Nie Tianhao's question, Yun Jianbai subconsciously glanced at Han Qingyun. Seeing that Han Qingyun was not looking in his direction, he turned his head to look at Nie Tianhao and nodded lightly. That's right. This potion is called the spiritual water. It's a true treasure. Hearing Yun Jianbai praise the potion so highly, Nie Tianhao was shocked and hurriedly asked, This potion can increase defensive power. Is the effect very strong? Yun Jianbai nodded. Strong, very strong. It said that every drop of spiritual water can increase one's defensive power by 10%. Do you think this effect is strong? After hearing Yun Jianbai's answer, Nie Tianhao was shocked. He hurriedly turned his head to look at the Tiangongmen's equipment made of deep-sea cold iron and fine gold. After being stunned for a while, he turned his head to look at Yun Jianbai and whispered, I think the potion that young Master Han poured out just now has more than one drop. Yun Jianbai nodded. It said that a small bottle can hold 5 drops of spiritual water. If I'm not wrong, the bottle in young Master Han's hand is the kind that can hold 5 drops of spiritual water. 5 drops. Hearing Yun Jianbai's answer, Nie Tianhao was shocked. He said in a trembling voice, Young Master Han has already poured spiritual water on that equipment twice. Could it be that he has already used it? Hearing Nie Tianhao's question, Yun Jianbai nodded reluctantly. Indeed, I have a 10th brother. Hearing Yun Jianbai's affirmative answer, Nie Tianhao looked at the equipment and was stunned for a while. After recovering from his shock, he turned his head to look at Yun Jianbai and asked word by word, Is there a lot of this spiritual water? Hearing this, Yun Jianbai shook his head with a crying smile. Although I don't know how much there is or how he got it, I'm sure that there isn't a lot of this spiritual water. Even the Tiangongmen probably don't have much of it. Hearing Yun Jianbai's answer, Nie Tianhao was even more shocked. Since the Tiangongmen don't have much of this potion, why would they need 10 drops of it to deal with a small Kikyaman? Yun Jianbai sighed and pointed at the 7 possibilities sex leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear as he lamented. I think the problem lies with the Kikyaman's leather armor. Hearing Yun Jianbai's words, Nie Tianhao's eyes lit up. Master Yun, You're saying that sect leader Han wants to obtain the crafting technique of this kind of equipment? Hearing this, Yun Jianbai nodded. If I'm not wrong, that must be the case. Chapter 392. Everything was ready and waiting for the announcement of the match. Fan Yin stood up and looked at Han Xingyun and Sun Xiaoer. He smiled and asked, Sect Masters, is there anything else? If there's nothing else, the competition will begin. After Fan Yin asked this question, he saw that Han Xingyun and Sun Xiaoer both nodded. Only then did he shout at the competition venue. Level 19 test, begin. Following Fan Yan's command, Han Yuchao quickly took down the level 19 sword from the weapon rack and ran to Gu Yunfei, handing him the level 19 sword with both hands. Gu Yunfei took the sword from Han Yuchao's hand and slowly walked towards Kikyamin's leather armor. Sun Xiaoer kept staring at Gu Yunfei. She wanted to see how strong the second spirit-boosting pill would be. The most important thing was whether or not her leather armor could withstand this terrifying attack. At this point, it was no exaggeration to say that Gu Yunfei's strength was terrifying. 2 spirit-boosting pills could increase Gu Yunfei's strength by twofold. This kind of increase in strength was unimaginable. Gu Yunfei's strength was already very high. With the twofold increase, his strength would definitely be very strong. Gu Yunfei slowly walked towards Kikyamin's leather armor and stared at it. After a while, he suddenly thought of something, and a stream of true qi came out of his body. In an instant, this stream of true qi flowed around, and the dust and sand on the ground started to swirl in the air again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The dust and sand started to swirl faster and faster, and there was even a faint sound of air being torn apart. Seeing this, everyone couldn't stay calm anymore. They all stood up and ran towards the distance. The attack just now was enough to injure people. This time, there was no need to experience it live. Just the sound of the sand and sand tearing through the air was not to be underestimated. Ben Tian's injury was swirling in the air like a tornado, dancing around the competition grounds. The tornado made of dust and sand was spinning faster and faster, and the sound was getting louder and louder. Gu Yunfei, who was standing in the middle of the tornado, felt the feeling of being blown by the tornado. He nodded in satisfaction. This was the power that he yearned for even in his dreams. With just a wave of his hand, he could bring him immense power. Gu Yunfei slowly raised the saber in his hand. With a thought, a dark red light rose from the tip of the saber like a red ribbon. It rose to a height of about 3 meters before stopping. Looking at the tip of the saber, Gu Yunfei once again nodded in satisfaction. After eating 2 spirit-boosting pills, his strength had become so terrifying that even he himself was shocked by this ferocious power. Looking through the sky full of sand and stones, Gu Yunfei saw the leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear. He suddenly roared and shook his wrists slightly. The level 19 saber left a 3-meter-long blade aura as it slashed at the leather armor. After it hit the leather armor, it immediately made a muffled sound. Even if everyone ran far away, they could still hear the muffled sound. After the sound, the dust in the sky was immediately blown away by the shockwave. Just as everyone heard the sound, the sky full of sand and stones flew over their heads, making a slight sound as they broke through the air. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. They had run quite a distance, but they didn't expect that the small sand and stones could still fly so far. Sun Xiaoer and the others hid behind a wall. When they heard the sound of the sand and stones hitting the wall, they were shocked. If they were hit by such a powerful attack, they would definitely be injured. After a while, the sound gradually disappeared. Only then did everyone walk out from behind the wall. The dust in the sky had been blown away by the tyrannical true qi fluctuations. There was no longer any dust floating in the arena. Everyone only saw Gu Yunfei standing not far from the leather armor. He was staring at the leather armor with a strange expression. Seeing this scene, Han Xingyun was shocked. He had a faint bad feeling in his heart. He quickly walked a few steps and stopped not far away. Looking at Kikyamin's leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear, Han Qingyun's expression changed. His eyes widened. The leather armor was still hanging there unscathed. Such a powerful attack, but it still couldn't break through the leather armor's defense. Han Qingyun stood there in a daze for a long time. He suddenly walked up to the leather armor. Just as he was about to reach out to grab it, he suddenly heard Sun Qiao's voice. Sect Leader Han, what are you doing? Hearing Sun Qiao's voice, Han Qingyun came to his senses. He quickly retracted his hand and went to Gu Yunfei to ask in a low voice. Master, when you attacked the leather armor just now, did you feel anything? After hearing Han Qingyun's question, Gu Yunfei smiled bitterly and shook his head. I only felt that I hit something hard. Other than that, I didn't feel anything else. After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun was stunned. He reacted and asked in a low voice, Master, did you feel wrong? Kikyamin's leather armor is made from the skin of a wild bear. How could it feel like something hard? Hearing Han Qingyun's question, Gu Yunfei was stunned. Then, he frowned and muttered to himself in confusion. That's right. Since it's leather armor, it should be soft. How could it feel like something hard? Could it be that I felt wrong just now? Hearing Gu Yunfei's mutterings, Han Qingyun subconsciously turned to look at Kikyamin's leather armor. He squinted for a long time, but couldn't find the problem. This leather armor was just an ordinary leather armor. Han Qingyun was sure of that. But why did Gu Qingyun feel that way? What was the reason behind this? Thinking of this, Han Qingyun turned to look at Sun Qiao. He was even more confused. A small Kikyamin could make leather armor with such high defense. Who would believe it if it was told to others? No, there must be a problem. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to make leather armor with such high defense from the skin of a wild bear. But where did the problem lie? Han Qingyun thought for a while and turned to look at Gu Yunfei. He asked in a low voice, Master, the sky was full of dust just now. I couldn't see anything. Could you see the leather armor in the dust? Hearing Han Qingyun's question, Gu Yunfei nodded and said in a low voice, I deliberately made the dust in the sky so that no one could see what I was doing in the dust. The dust only swirled around me, but there wasn't a single speck of dust around me. Naturally, I could see the leather armor clearly. Hearing Gu Yunfei's answer, Han Qingyun hurriedly asked, Master, think carefully. Did your knife really hit the leather armor? After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei was a little confused. He looked at Han Qingyun and was stunned for a long time. Chapter 393. Gu Yunfei hesitated for a moment before nodding. I've been watching. It must have been the leather armor. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been that feeling of being blocked. Hearing Gu Yunfei's answer, Han Qingyun was a little doubtful. Could it be that he had guessed wrongly? The reason why he couldn't break through the defense of the leather armor was because the defense of the leather armor was too strong. However, Han Qingyun couldn't believe that a leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear could have such a terrifying defense. In Han Qingyun's opinion, it was something that he didn't dare to imagine. Thinking of this, Han Qingyun turned to look at Gu Yunfei and said in a deep voice, Master, since everyone knows about your strength, there's no need to hide it. I think that when you test it later, there's no need to fill the sky with dust to prevent it from affecting the vision. Speaking of this, Han Qingyun paused for a moment before continuing. This way, I can also watch from the side and see if there's anything fishy. Hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei was stunned for a moment before nodding his head. Initially, he had filled the sky with dust to prevent others from seeing his full strength. Now that everyone knew about it, there was no need to hide it anymore. Gu Yunfei muttered to himself for a moment before slowly saying, Do you think there's something fishy about this? Han Qingyun nodded his head and said with certainty, Yes, there must be. Otherwise, no matter how good the craftsmanship is, an armor made from the skin of a wild bear wouldn't be able to reach such a level. Speaking of this, Han Qingyun turned his head to look at Gu Yunfei and said in a low voice, Master, have you heard of any sect that has such heaven-defying craftsmanship? Gu Yunfei shook his head. No, but the world is so big. Even if some strange things happen, it shouldn't be strange. Hearing Gu Yunfei's answer, Han Qingyun shook his head again. Impossible. Just relying on craftsmanship to achieve such a strong defense, in my opinion, it's impossible. Unless they also have a treasure like the spirit water that can increase the defense of equipment, otherwise, it's absolutely impossible. After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei turned his head to look at the leather armor in front of him and nodded. It seems that this is the only explanation that can explain why the defense of this leather armor is so strong. Upon hearing Gu Yunfei's answer, Han Qingyun sneered. If they really used a treasure like the spirit water, then Kikyaman must have paid a hefty price. However, no matter how good a treasure is, there is bound to be a limit. Just like our spirit water, it can only increase the defensive power of equipment to a certain extent. After the equipment's limit is exceeded, the equipment's defense will still be broken. I think that Master's attack power has increased by 2 times. Under such a powerful attack, this equipment should not be far from its limit. Perhaps in the next attack, this equipment will be smashed into pieces. After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei's eyes lit up. The spirit water was the most valuable treasure in the world. Every drop of it could increase the defensive power of equipment by 10%. If the Tiangolman's leather armor, made from the skin of a wild bear, was also used, the defensive power of this leather armor would be increased to a certain extent. Although the defensive power was relatively strong, there would always be a limit. As long as the attack power exceeded the defensive power of this leather armor, the leather armor would immediately be smashed into pieces. Gu Yunfei turned his head to look at Kikyaman's leather armor. He clenched his fist and said fiercely, I must break the defense of this leather armor and show Kikyaman that we Tiangolman are absolutely invincible. After saying this, Gu Yunfei turned his head to look at Han Qingyun and asked in a low voice, based on your guess, what is the limit of this equipment? What level of attack would be able to break its defense? After hearing Gu Yunfei's question, Han Qingyun frowned and thought for a moment before slowly saying, just now, Master used a level 19 sword. Coupled with Master's all-out attack and 2 spirit-strengthening pills, a simple estimate would be that the last attack would be around level 23. Based on my guess, no matter how strong the defense of this leather armor is, I'm afraid it won't be able to withstand a level 25 attack. After hearing Han Qingyun's answer, Gu Yunfei's heart was instantly filled with joy. He nodded and said, your guess is similar to mine. The limit of this leather armor should be around level 25. After hearing this, Han Qingyun turned his head to look at the Tiangolman's equipment. He then lowered his voice and said, after using the spirit water, if there are no accidents, that equipment of ours should be able to withstand a level 22 attack. After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei could not help but frown. Based on your calculations, after using the 5 drops of spirit water, this equipment's defense would only increase by 4 levels? After hearing Gu Yunfei's question, Han Qingyun shook his head and said, this is just a simple estimate of mine. Based on my guess, although the effect of the spirit water is strong, it shouldn't be able to increase the defense without limit. Based on my experience, no matter what kind of treasure it is, the effect will be the strongest the first time it is used. When it is used for the second time, the effect will definitely weaken. The first time we used the 5 drops of spirit water, it increased the defense of this equipment by 5 levels. The second time we used the 5 drops of spirit water, if the effect will weaken, the defense of this equipment should only increase by 3 or 4 levels. The 4 levels that I said should be the limit. After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei's frown deepened. He had to admit that Han Qingyun's words made sense. Just like the spirit-strengthening pills, after eating 5 of them, the effect would not be that strong. However, this was only a legend because the person who ate the most pills only ate 5 at most. After eating 5 spirit-strengthening pills, one's lifespan would be reduced by 10 years. No one would complain that their lifespan was too long. After reducing their lifespan by 10 years, they would still eat more spirit-strengthening pills. Han Qingyun's guess about the spirit water was really just a guess. After all these years, no one had used so much spirit water. Since no one had used so much spirit water, the specific effect naturally could not be used as a reference. However, in Gu Yunfei's opinion, Han Qingyun's estimation should be correct. According to the analysis of the decreasing effect, the second time the spirit water increased the defense by 4 levels should be considered not bad. Seeing that Gu Yunfei agreed with his theory, Han Qingyun continued, "We have already tested the attack at level 19. Next, we will test the attack at level 20. In this way, we still have 3 chances to reach the limit. As for Kikyaman, if I'm not wrong, Master only needs 2 more attacks to break their defense." Chapter 394. After listening to Han Qingyun's analysis, Gu Yunfei was overjoyed. He quickly asked, "If that's the case, doesn't that mean we don't have to take that spirit-enhancing pill anymore?" After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun was stunned for a moment, then nodded. "Master, if there was a way, I wouldn't let you take that pill. Since you don't have to take it anymore, isn't that better?" Hearing that they didn't have to take that pill, Gu Yunfei was overjoyed. "Good, that's great. With just 2 more attacks, we can break through the defense of that leather armor. That's great." Seeing how happy Gu Yunfei was, Han Qingyun quickly said, "Master, even so, you can't be careless. Every time you attack, you have to go all out. If you can break through his defense earlier, you won't have to worry anymore." Gu Yunfei nodded. "Don't worry, I know this. I won't be careless." After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun was relieved. He turned to leave and returned to the judge's table. As soon as Han Qingyun returned to the judge's table, he noticed that the other judges were also whispering. When they saw Han Qingyun return, they immediately stopped talking. Although Han Qingyun didn't know what they were talking about, he knew that they were talking about Kikyaman's leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear. In fact, Kikyaman's leather armor not only attracted the attention of the judges, even Han Qingyun was drooling. If he could get his hands on this technology, Han Qingyun would definitely be overjoyed. Han Qingyun was sure that if he really mastered this technology, it wouldn't take more than 3 years for the Tiangongman's position to be beckoned to him. This was definitely not Han Qingyun's wild guess. Zhu Jinshi might be the faction head of the Heaven's Craftsman faction right now, but once Han Qingyun mastered more advanced techniques, she would definitely have a chance to get her hands on the position of faction head. Zhu Jinshi relied on his superior manufacturing skills to become the leader. Why couldn't he, Han Qingyun, rely on his superior manufacturing skills to become the leader? At this point in the competition, Han Qingyun had long forgotten his initial goal. Now, all he wanted was to get his hands on Kikyaman's technology. That was the most important thing. Looking at Sun Xiao's indifferent face, Han Qingyun could not understand how such a small workshop sect could have such superb skills. Most importantly, he had never heard of this technology before. He had never even seen it before, which made him very suspicious. Han Qingyun turned to look at Prince Zhang, who was on the other side of the judging panel. He was even more confused. He had originally guessed that this technology should have been provided by young Master Zhang. However, no matter how he looked at it, he could not tell that young Master Zhang had such advanced manufacturing skills. If they possessed such a high level of crafting skills, the news would have spread far and wide in the Jianghu. How would it be like now, where he had not even heard of it? Could it be that this matter really had nothing to do with Prince Zhang? But that couldn't be right. Han Qingyun remembered that at the beginning, Sun Xiao had said that Prince Zhang was here to help. Since he was here to help, he must have the ability to help. Raising the defense of this equipment to such a high level must have been the result of Prince Zhang's help. Thinking of this, Han Qingyun's eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of coldness. Regardless of whether this matter was done by Prince Zhang or not, he definitely couldn't let him go. As long as this competition ended, he would immediately send people to capture him. He believed that after capturing him, he would be able to immediately find out whether he was the culprit or not. The competition continued. The level 19 attack had ended. The Tiangongman's and Kikyaman's equipment had both been upgraded to level 20 after withstanding the level 19 attack. With the results of his discussion with Han Qingyun, Gu Yunfei felt much more relaxed. At the very least, he did not need to take any more potions for this attack. If he guessed correctly, this equipment's peak should be level 25. This was not a wild guess by Han Qingyun and Gu Yunfei. Once a piece of equipment reached level 25, it would no longer be an ordinary piece of equipment. Level 25 was a dividing line. Equipment below level 25 was considered ordinary. After level 25, equipment would be considered God tier. Thinking about it, Gu Yunfei's strength had only increased to level 23 after doubling his strength. One could only imagine how terrifying a level 25 attack was. Equipment that could withstand a level 25 attack was definitely God-tier equipment. Gu Yunfei held the level 20 saber in his hand and slowly walked to Kikyaman's equipment. As his thoughts rose, the true qi began to flow through his body. Gu Yunfei enjoyed this feeling very much. After eating 2 spirit-boosting pills, the true energy flowed wildly through his meridians. Even if the true energy was not released, Gu Yunfei could still feel how terrifying it was. The true energy flowed through his body once. This time, Gu Yunfei did not release his true energy. This was because it was meaningless. Everyone knew his strength, and it would be bad if he continued to hide it. Gu Yunfei slowly raised his saber. This time, there was no dust in the way, so everyone could see it clearly. As Gu Yunfei released his true qi, the saber in his hand gradually spat out a red saber light. The glow on the tip of the saber had already reached a deep red color. Everyone had only heard of this glow, but they did not expect to see it with their own eyes. For a moment, the audience in the stands exclaimed in admiration. Who would have thought that it would be a deep red glow? I've heard that the Tiangomen's Elder Ji's martial arts are powerful, and his inner strength is unparalleled. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, it is indeed extraordinary. I've heard that the Sky Sword Sect's Grandmaster, Jiang Nantian, only managed to cultivate a deep red glow. I didn't expect Elder Gu to have such power as well. Gu Yunfei's martial arts were powerful, so he naturally heard the crowd's discussions. Hearing the crowd's praises, Gu Yunfei's face immediately showed a hint of pride. People who practiced martial arts like to hear others praise their martial arts skills. Gu Yunfei was even more satisfied when he heard these people comparing him with the Sky Sword Sect's Grandmaster, Jiang Nantian. Jiang Nantian, the Sky Sword Sect's Grandmaster, was the most powerful person in the South County. In terms of martial arts, if Jiang Nantian claimed to be the second most powerful person in the South County, no one would dare to claim to be the first. Now, someone actually compared him with Jiang Nantian. This made Gu Yunfei feel like he was floating in the air. Gu Yunfei felt that the true qi in his body had reached its limit. Only then did he let out a cold snort and take a step forward. At the same time, he tightly gripped the hilt of his saber with both hands. In the next moment, he suddenly exerted force with both hands. The level 20 saber, with a long crimson tail, fiercely slashed towards the 7 Skills Sect's leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear. Bang! The saber in Gu Yunfei's hand made contact with the 7 Possibilities Sect's leather armor and issued a muffled sound. Chapter 395. When Gu Yunfei's saber struck Kikyaman's leather armor, a dull thud was heard. After the thud, everyone felt a gust of wind blow in front of them, causing their clothes to flutter. Even their faces were hurt by the gust of wind. When Gu Yunfei had struck Kikyaman's leather armor with his saber, Han Qingyun had been watching closely. He wanted to see how the leather armor would block Gu Yunfei's saber. Han Qingyun only saw that when Gu Yunfei's saber struck the leather armor, a gust of wind blew in front of his eyes. Subconsciously, Han Qingyun closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes, Gu Yunfei had already retreated to the side with his saber. Looking at the leather armor that was still in perfect condition, Han Qingyun was still taken aback even though he had expected it to be so. This time, Gu Yunfei's attack wasn't covered by dust. Han Qingyun saw clearly that Gu Yunfei hadn't held back. After such a powerful attack, the leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear wasn't damaged at all. Seeing this, Han Qingyun's heart was in his mouth again. According to his estimation, Gu Yunfei's attack this time must have been at least level 24. Just now, he and Gu Yunfei had guessed that the leather armor was at most level 25, because after level 25, it would become a god-tier equipment. According to their guesses, Kikyaman's equipment couldn't have been higher than level 25. Han Qingyun and Gu Yunfei's guesses were actually very reasonable. In terms of quality, the skin of a wild bear was destined to have a low defense. Although it could be enhanced by special crafting or treasures, the skin of a wild bear was limited in terms of quality. No matter how good Kikyaman's crafting was or how precious the treasures were, it couldn't change the quality of a wild bear's skin. This was a reason why Han Qingyun and Gu Yunfei guessed. To reach god-tier equipment, it wasn't just a matter of crafting. It was also a matter of materials. If the quality of the materials wasn't good enough, no matter how capable you were, you wouldn't be able to surpass the peak of common tier. If one wanted to reach the divine grade, they would need relatively good materials. Not to mention the wilderness bear's hide. Even the hide of a diamond monster would be a waste. The quality was too low, and it was impossible for it to reach the divine grade. It was like an ordinary piece of scrap metal. No matter how high the craftsmanship was, or how many additives there were, it would not be able to reach the state of upgrading. Although Han Qingyun and Gu Yunfei's guesses were reasonable, they couldn't help feeling uneasy when they looked at the leather armor, which had withstood an attack equivalent to a level 24 attack. However, this uneasiness only lasted for a moment, because in their minds, no matter how you refine the wild bear's skin, it would never reach the divine level. In other words, it would never be able to withstand a level 25 attack. Kikyaman's equipment had withstood a level 20 attack. Next, it was the Taiganmen's turn to face a level 20 attack. The female disciple of the Seven Skills sect held the level 20 saber and stopped 7 to 8 meters away from the Heaven's Craftsman faction's equipment made from deep-sea cold iron and fine gold. She first performed a few simple movements and warmed up her limbs. When she felt that all the strength in her body was ready, she raised the level 20 saber with both hands. Suddenly, she widened her eyes and howled before charging toward the Heaven's Craftsman faction's equipment. This Taiganmen's female disciple wasn't very strong. She couldn't jump high to increase her attack power. She had no choice but to run for a distance to increase her attack power. Ding! The Taiganmen's female disciple's level 20 sword landed on the Taiganmen's equipment made of deep-sea cold iron and fine gold. Immediately after, the huge impact caused the Taiganmen's female disciple's hand to hurt. She couldn't help but take 3 or 4 steps back before she could stabilize herself. The Taiganmen's female disciple didn't care about the pain in her hand. As soon as she steadied herself, she looked at the Taiganmen's equipment to see the effect of her attack. Unfortunately, the Taiganmen's equipment made of deep-sea cold iron and fine gold was still as smooth as a mirror after being slashed by a level 20 sword. There wasn't a single scratch. Sun Shower sighed in her heart as she watched her disciple slash at the Taiganmen's equipment. She was so nervous that her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Since when did equipment testing become a competition of brute force? According to Sun Shower's past experience, both sides would choose a neutral sect to test their equipment to ensure fairness. But now, it was no different from a competition of brute force. Kikyaman's female disciple wasn't very strong. Even if she used all her strength, she wouldn't be able to display a higher level of strength. However, the Taiganmen were different. Gu Yunfei was no ordinary person. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was famous in the entire South region. Gu Yunfei was very strong, and his inner strength was very strong. If he attacked, even if he didn't use all his strength, his attack power would increase by 1 level. Moreover, not only did Gu Feiying use all his strength, he even ate 2 spirit-boosting pills to increase his strength by 2 times. Sun Shower wanted to stop this. This was clearly cheating. However, Han Qingyun didn't agree. More importantly, the contract signed by both sides didn't object to this. Although Sun Xiaoer was very angry, she couldn't do anything. If she wanted to withdraw from the competition, it meant that she admitted defeat. Now, Sun Xiaoer could only pray. She prayed that her leather armor's defense was stronger and that Prince Zhang's ancestral skill could withstand such a powerful attack. Other than that, Sun Xiaoer had no other choice. Seeing the red glow on Gu Yunfei's sword, Fan Yin couldn't help but turn to Nye Tianhao and ask in a low voice, "I didn't expect Gu Yunfei's strength to be so high." At this point, Fan Yin paused for a moment before he continued. "For an elder to possess such strength, I wonder if he is stronger than your master?" After hearing Fan Yin's words, Nye Tianhao nodded. "He's indeed very strong. However, compared to my master, he's still a little weaker." After hearing Nye Tianhao's answer, Fan Yin's eyes lit up. He asked in surprise, "Could it be that your master's martial arts is stronger than Elder Ji's?" Nye Tianhao nodded. "That is indeed the case. Elder Ji's saber is emitting a red saber glow, but my master's saber glow is faintly golden." Golden glow. Hearing Nye Tianhao's words, Fan Yin was stunned. After a while, he asked in surprise, "Really? Can your master really emit a golden glow?" After hearing Fan Yin's question, Nye Tianhao nodded. "That's true. However, my master hasn't been in this group for long. When he unleashes his full power, he can only emit a faint golden glow. He can't use it flexibly yet." Chapter 396. After hearing Nye Tianhao's reply, Fan Yin sighed. "Hero Nye, your master is indeed the #1 expert in the South County. I didn't expect his inner strength to have reached such a level. It's really something to look forward to." Nye Tianhao nodded and turned to look at Gu Yunfei. With Senior Ji's current strength, he's also quite strong. I didn't expect such a powerful attack to be unable to break through the defense of this leather armor. What a miracle! After hearing Nye Tianhao's words, Fan Yin turned to look at Kikyamin's leather armor, which was made from the skin of a wild bear. He sighed. "I didn't expect Kikyamin to give us such a big surprise." Fan Iran paused for a moment before continuing. "Leather armor with such a terrifying defense. Needless to say, I've never seen or even heard of it before. It's really amazing." When Nye Tianhao heard this, he was also full of praise. "That's true. If leather armor can reach such a high defense, I'm afraid that metal armor won't be our best choice." Fan Yin naturally understood what Nye Tianhao meant. They were not soldiers on the battlefield. As long as the defense of their equipment was high, it didn't matter even if it was weak. In the underworld, when it came to equipment, not only did it have a high defense, but it also had to be light. Only light equipment would not affect one's combat strength. If the defense of leather armor could reach such a terrifying level, everyone would naturally not choose that kind of cumbersome metal armor. When the two of them said this, they subconsciously looked at Han Qingyun. At this moment, Han Qingyun's face was calm. Although Kikyamin's leather armor had withstood a level 20 attack, he still did not panic. It was just that this was all on the surface. In Han Qingyun's heart, he was actually extremely nervous. This was the second time he had used a spiritual water. The Heaven's Craftsman faction had a total of 21 drops of spiritual water. For the sake of this competition, 10 drops of spiritual water had been used. If they still couldn't win this competition, Han Qingyun would never be willing to accept the outcome of this competition. It was also an outcome he couldn't accept. The Tiangongmen and Kikyamin's equipment had withstood a level 20 attack. In Han Qingyun's opinion, there was nothing strange about this, because according to his and Gu Qingyun's estimation, this round would not be able to break through the defense of the opponent's leather armor. In Han Qingyun's opinion, the next attack would be the decisive attack. At LV 21, with the LV 21 sword, Gu Yunfei's full power, and the buff from the 2 spirit boosting pills, he should be able to reach LV 25. Thinking up to this point, Han Qingyun's heart skipped a beat. If the 7 possibilities sex equipment could block a level 25 attack, then a level 25 attack might not be able to break through the leather armor's defense. If he wanted to be safe, he could only use a level 26 attack. Only then would he have the confidence to break through the level 25 defense. However, in Gu Yunfei's current state, even if he attacked with all his might, it would only be a level 25 attack. It was impossible for him to increase his attack power. Unless, thinking of this, Han Qingyun could no longer sit still. In order to be safe, in order to break through the defense of the leather armor, he had to talk to Gu Yunfei. Han Qingyun looked at Gu Yunfei, who was in the arena, and weighed the odds of success. Then, he stood up and walked towards Gu Yunfei. Han Qingyun came in front of Gu Yunfei and saluted him. Then he said softly, "Master, the next attack will be level 21. Are you confident that you can break through Kikyamin's leather armor?" Hearing Han Qingyun's question, Gu Yunfei shook his head with a bitter smile. He pointed at Kikyamin's leather armor, which was made from the skin of a wild bear, and sighed. If the next attack can break through the defense of this leather armor, then a level 20 attack should at least leave some marks on it. At this point, Gu Yunfei paused for a moment before continuing, "But look, there's still not a single mark on the leather armor. It's really hard to say if the next attack will be able to break through the defense of this armor." Hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun nodded. "Master is right. If we only increase our attack power by one level, it will indeed be very difficult to break through the defense of this armor." Gu Yunfei sighed. "Yes, I really didn't expect Kikyamin to be able to make such a terrifying piece of equipment. I've lived for a long time, but not only have I never seen or heard of such a powerful piece of equipment, but I've never even heard of it. It's really strange. I don't know how Kikyamin made it. Was it through Kikyamin's unique craftsmanship, or did it use some kind of treasure to increase its defense? It's really hard to guess." After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun laughed coldly. "Master, why bother guessing? As long as we defeat Kikyamin and make Kikyamin a member of the Tiangongmen, then we'll naturally know the craftsmanship of Kikyamin. Master, don't you think so?" After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Yunfei's eyes lit up. "That's right. According to your contract, as long as you defeat Kikyamin, Kikyamin will join the Tiangongmen. When that happens, they won't hide this technology anymore." Seeing Gu Yunfei's joyful expression, Han Qingyun laughed coldly in his heart. However, his expression was as calm as usual. "Master, if we want to know the secret of Kikyamin's equipment, we must defeat them. According to the contract, they will only join the Tiangongmen if we defeat Kikyamin. Master, do you have any good ideas to break the defense of Kikyamin's leather armor? Only by breaking the defense of this leather armor can we be considered to have won this competition. Then we'll naturally know the secret of Kikyamin." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, the joy on Gu Yunfei's face disappeared and was replaced by a look of difficulty. "Sai, what do we do? Kikyamin's leather armor is really powerful in terms of defense. Even with our Tiangongmen's abilities, we still need to use high-grade materials to make equipment with such high defense. It's really quite difficult to break the defense of this leather armor." After hearing Gu Yunfei's answer, Han Qingyun sighed. "Master, according to our estimation, Kikyamin's leather armor should be able to last until level 25. But Master, do you think a level 25 attack will be able to break the defense of this armor?" After hearing Han Qingyun's question, Gu Yunfei paused for a moment and then shook his head. "I don't know. Although the next level is level 25, looking at the state of Kikyamin's leather armor, if the attack only increases by one level, it seems like it won't be able to break the defense of this leather armor." After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyun nodded. Chapter 397. Han Qingyun said, "Master, I came here this time to ask if you have any good ideas to increase our attack power by one level. As long as we increase our attack power by one level, we can use our level 26 attack power to attack a level 25 leather armor. I'm sure we can break the defense of this leather armor in one hit." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Gu Gu Yunfei nodded and sighed. That's true. If we want to use a level 25 attack to attack a level 25 equipment, the success or failure is uncertain. Even if I go all out, I'm afraid I won't be able to do it. After hearing Gu Yunfei's words, Han Qingyan sighed. Master, if we want to obtain the manufacturing technology of the Kikyaman, we must win this competition. If we still can't break the defense of this armor, then the loser will most likely be us. After hearing Han Qingyan's words, Gu Yunfei couldn't help but frown. He sighed and said, Then what should we do? My strongest attack can only reach level 25. This is already the result of my full strength. It's already impossible to increase my attack power. After hearing Gu Yunfei's answer, Han Qingyan suddenly said, Master, for the glory of the Tiangongmen and to obtain the secrets of the Kikyaman, in my opinion, why don't you eat another spirit-enhancing pill to increase your attack power so that you can break the defense of the Kikyaman leather armor in one hit? After hearing Han Qingyan's words, Gu Yunfei was instantly shocked. If he ate another spirit-enhancing pill, wouldn't that mean that he would lose another 2 years of his lifespan? Since the start of the competition, Gu Yunfei had already eaten 2 spirit-enhancing pills and lost 4 years of his lifespan. If he ate another spirit-enhancing pill, he would lose 6 years of his lifespan. 6 years of his lifespan. At the thought of this, Gu Yunfei's eyes teared up in pain. He had thought that after becoming an elder of the Tiangongmen, he would be able to enjoy his old age in peace. He had never thought that he would be involved in such a situation. At this point, Gu Yunfei was extremely regretful. If he hadn't participated in the competition, all these things wouldn't have happened. Out of sight, out of mind. Naturally, he wouldn't have worried about this matter, and his lifespan wouldn't have been reduced. But now, it was already too late to back down. At this point, if he still could not defeat Kikyaman, then, as the second elder of the Tiangongmen, he would be too ashamed to face anyone. Gu Yunfei shuddered at the thought of living under the contempt of others in the future. Thinking that he would be looked down upon by others in the future, Gu Yunfei clenched his teeth. Even if he had to reduce his lifespan by 2 years, it was still better than being too ashamed to face anyone. All right, for the honor of the Tiangongmen, I'll take another spirit-strengthening pill. I'll try to break Kikyaman's leather armor in the next attack. Hearing that Gu Yunfei had agreed to eat the spirit-boosting pills, Han Qingyan nodded in satisfaction. Although he was a little regretful that Gu Yunfei had eaten too few spirit-boosting pills, he also knew that this matter could not be forced. If he took the initiative to ask Gu Yunfei to eat 2 spirit-boosting pills and anger Gu Yunfei, then it would not be good. Han Qingyan was very clear that if Gu Yunfei left in a rage, then he would definitely lose this match. It was simply impossible to find another master like Gu Yunfei in the Tiangongmen. This was not to say that Gu Yunfei's martial arts were the best in the Tiangongmen, but because even if there was someone better than Gu Yunfei, Han Qingyan would not be able to invite them. Moreover, Gu Yunfei had already eaten 2 spirit-boosting pills. Based on Gu Yunfei's current state, Han Qingyan was certain that Gu Yunfei was definitely the best in the Tiangongmen. Although Han Qingyan was a little regretful, he still clasped his fists and said gratefully, Master, you're so righteous. For the honor of the Tiangongmen, you're actually willing to put yourself in danger. Your disciple's heart is filled with admiration. Hearing Han Qingyan's words, Gu Yunfei waved his hand a little sadly. All right, you don't have to say any more. For the sake of the Tiangongmen, even if I lose a few years of my life, it's worth it. As Gu Yunfei spoke, he took out the medicine bottle containing the spirit-boosting pills. Looking at the crystal-clear medicine bottle, Gu Yunfei had a feeling that he wanted to cry. He knew that this was poison, but he still ate it. What a sad thing. Gu Yunfei slowly took out a spirit-boosting pill. After looking at it for a while, he gritted his teeth and threw the spirit-boosting pill into his mouth. Without even chewing, he swallowed it into his stomach. Seeing Gu Yunfei eat the spirit-boosting pill, Han Qingyan sighed his heart. Just as he was about to turn and leave, he suddenly froze. After Gu Yunfei ate the spirit-boosting pill, his eyes first turned red, then slowly turned white. After a while, his complexion returned to normal. Although his complexion returned to normal, Han Qingyun could clearly see that Gu Yunfei's complexion had become somewhat haggard. Not only that, even the white hair on his temples had increased by a lot. Seeing this, Han Qingyun was only stunned for a moment before his complexion returned to normal. He hurriedly clasped his fists and bowed to Gu Yunfei. "Master, your disciple will return first." Gu Yunfei nodded his head casually and began to feel the effects of the spirit-boosting pill. Gu Yunfei did not know about the changes in his appearance. He only felt that his true qi had suddenly increased by a lot, causing him to be intoxicated by this wild power. While Han Qingyun and Gu Yunfei were talking, Sun Shower kept staring at them, trying to figure out what these two people were up to. After a short while, Sun Shower saw Gu Yunfei take out the medicine bottle again. This time, he took out a pill. Looking at the pill in Gu Yunfei's hand, Sun Shower's heart skipped a beat. Naturally, Sun Shower recognized the pill. Of course, it was the spirit-boosting pill. Seeing Gu Yunfei take out the spirit-boosting pill, Sun Shower knew that Gu Yunfei was going to increase his battle strength again. Not long after, Gu Yunfei ate the spirit-boosting pill with a ferocious expression. Following that, Sun Shower's mouth opened wide in shock, because she saw that the wrinkles on Gu Yunfei's face seemed to have deepened a lot. His originally white hair had also become whiter. His entire person seemed to have aged a lot. When she heard about the spirit-boosting pill, Sun Shower did not feel anything. Even if she heard that the spirit-boosting pill could reduce one's lifespan by 2 years, Sun Shower had never seen it before. Naturally, she did not have any intuitive reaction. Now that she saw it, she was so scared that half of her heart went cold. What the spirit-boosting pill brought to Gu Yunfei was not only an increase in strength, but also a reduction in lifespan. Gu Yunfei had aged so much at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was the most direct evidence that the spirit-boosting pill could really reduce a person's lifespan. Looking at Gu Yunfei, who did not know that his appearance had changed, Sun Shower suddenly felt some sympathy in her heart. Although Gu Yunfei was her enemy, he was still an old man. In order to fight against her, he did not hesitate to reduce his lifespan. This made Sun Shower feel a little emotional. Chapter 398. The competition continued. Since both sides had withstood a level 20 attack, they would have to face a level 21 challenge next. Gu Yunfei's confidence was boosted after he consumed a spirit-boosting pill. He could feel the boundless true energy in his body. He believed that if he used all his strength, he would definitely be able to create a crack in the ground in front of him. Gu Yunfei refused to believe that he wouldn't be able to break Kikyamin's leather armor with his frightening strength. Gu Yunfei took the level 21 blade that Han Yuchao passed to him and walked towards Kikyamin's leather armor. As soon as Gu Yunfei stopped in his tracks, everyone present felt that something was amiss. They all stood up and ran off into the distance. This had never happened before in the past, so there weren't any additional defensive measures in the competition venue. To be precise, the Tiangongmen were acting shamelessly. They were trying to use their powerful attacks to break Kikyamin's defense. According to the rules of the past, the Tiangongmen would never be allowed to do this. However, Han Qingyun had taken advantage of the fact that it wasn't written in the contract to use a powerful attack to break Kikyamin's leather armor. Although everyone knew that Han Qingyun was acting shamelessly, no one could stop him. After all, this was a moral bottom line that wasn't written in the contract. Furthermore, when Sun Shower had protested, Han Qingyun had also said that Kikyamin could also send someone with strong martial arts to take the test. Unfortunately, Kikyamin didn't have anyone with strong martial arts. The disciples of the Heaven's Craftsman sect, who had been surrounding Zhang Meng, had long fled and hid far away when they saw Gu Yunfei about to make a move. Only Zhang Meng and Nie Tianhao remained in their original positions. The rest of the people, including Yun Jianbai and Fan Yin, had already left their seats to hide in a safe place. Leng Yelyo was scared to death. Gu Yunfei's attack just now had already scared him out of his wits. Looking at Gu Yunfei's condition, this attack was likely much stronger than the previous one. Leng Yelyo suddenly turned his head, but suddenly saw Zhang Meng, who was still in the same place, but was overjoyed and hurriedly ran towards Zhang Meng. After hiding behind Zhang Meng, Leng Yelyo was slightly relieved. He patted Zhang Meng's back and asked softly, "Can you block it from the front?" Hearing this, Zhang Meng smiled and nodded. "No problem. With me around, I won't be able to hurt you." Zhang Meng didn't lower his voice when he said this. And yet Tianhao, who was sitting on the judging panel, chuckled when he heard this. I didn't expect Prince Zhang to have reached such a high level at such a young age. How rare. With Nie Tianhao's martial arts, he was able to deal with the shock waves from Gu Yunfei's powerful attack. That was why he didn't leave. Yun Jianbai and Fan Yan's cultivation wasn't mainly in terms of martial arts, so they needed to hide for a while. As for Han Qingyun, he didn't need to hide either. With his martial arts, it wouldn't be difficult for him to withstand the shock waves from Gu Yunfei's attack. The reason why Han Qingyun did this was because he wanted to monitor Sun Xiaoer and prevent her from playing any tricks. Hearing Nie Tianhao's question, Zhang Meng smiled. This elder Ji's martial arts are strong. It's indeed rare and powerful. Just as Zhang Meng finished speaking, before Nie Tianhao could reply, Leng Yelyo, who was hiding behind Zhang Meng, spoke first. "It doesn't seem to be like that. I just saw that this old man, surnamed Gu, took some medicine. I heard that it can increase his attack power. I don't know if it's true or not." Zhang Meng naturally saw Gu Yunfei take the medicine just now. He couldn't see it, but he could hear the voices of a few people talking. Through their conversation, Zhang Meng already understood that the medicine Gu Yunfei took was called the spirit-enhancing pill. It could indeed increase one's strength, and the increase was very strong. Every time a spirit-enhancing pill was taken, one's strength would double. Although Zhang Meng was very curious that such a small pill could double a person's strength, he was more concerned about this small pill. Every time a pill was taken, it would reduce one's lifespan by 2 years. Up until now, Zhang Meng had already seen Gu Yunfei take 3 spirit-enhancing pills. 3 spirit-enhancing pills were equivalent to reducing one's lifespan by 6 years. Not only that, Zhang Meng could already see that Gu Yunfei was slowly aging. After hearing Leng Yelyo's words, Zhang Meng turned to look at Nie Tianhao and asked doubtfully, "Hero Nie, every time a spirit-enhancing pill is consumed, it will reduce one's lifespan by 2 years. This elder Gu took a total of 3 spirit-enhancing pills. According to the reduction in lifespan, it should be 6 years. However, why do I feel that after elder Gu took these 3 spirit-enhancing pills, his lifespan was reduced by more than 6 years?" Hearing Zhang Meng's question, Nie Tianhao was also stunned. He naturally saw this problem. When Gu Yunfei took the 3rd pill, the speed at which he aged was too fast. Gu Yunfei's martial arts were strong, and his internal energy was deep. Even if his lifespan was reduced by 6 years, he definitely wouldn't become so old. Why was this? Nie Tianhao smiled bitterly and shook his head. "I don't know. When Fan Yin comes back later, we can ask him. He should know what's going on." Fan Yin was an outstanding disciple of the Medicine King's pavilion. He naturally knew more about the changes in medicine than outsiders like them. After hearing Nie Tianhao's answer, Zhang Meng nodded. Leng Yelyo patted Zhang Meng's back and suddenly asked, "Hey, Jean de Gu, do you think this old man with the surname Gu will be able to break the defense of our leather armor this time?" After hearing Leng Yelyo's question, Nie Tianhao's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly listened attentively. Zhang Meng smiled and said, "I don't think so. Although Elder Ji's martial arts are strong, Kikyaman's leather armor is not something to be trifled with. Even if his attack power is twice as strong, I'm afraid he won't be able to break the defense of this leather armor." After hearing Zhang Meng's words, Leng Yelyo let out a long sigh of relief. She smiled and said, "Hearing you say this, I feel much more at ease." Elder Ji's appearance really scared me. I was afraid that he would break our leather armor. After hearing Lung Yelyo's words, Zhang Meng smiled and shook his head. "It's okay. I can guarantee you that he won't be able to break Kikyamin's leather armor." After hearing Zhang Meng's guarantee, Lung Yelyo smiled sweetly. "Thank you, Zhang de Gu." After hearing the conversation between the two, Nie Tianhao's heart started beating wildly. A thought rose in his mind. Could it be that the defense of Kikyamin's leather armor was so strong because of this young man? According to Nie Tianhao's guess, a small sect like Kikyamin definitely wouldn't be able to make such a terrifying piece of equipment. This was where Nie Tianhao's doubts lay. Chapter 399. The level 21 blade contained all of Gu Yunfei's power. Coupled with the effects of the 3 spirit-boosting pills, it had reached a terrifying level. Wherever the blade passed, the sharp sound of the air being sliced could be heard clearly. The collision between the blade and the leather armor created a powerful shockwave that shook the entire space. In the blink of an eye, sand and pebbles were sent flying in all directions on the competition ground. Nie Tianhao, who was sitting on the judge's stand, felt the ground tremble when the blade hit the leather armor. Along with the shockwave of the blade, a strong gust of wind with a large amount of sand and dust whizzed towards him. Nie Tianhao saw that the situation was not good. He hurriedly channeled all of his true qi to protect his body. Even so, Nie Tianhao felt his body sway uncontrollably. He was like a small boat in the middle of a stormy sea. Seeing the momentum of Gu Yunfei's blade, Lung Yelyo was so scared that her face turned pale. She couldn't help but scream. But after a while, Lung Yelyo felt extremely strange. With such a terrifying momentum, even yet Tianhao, who was highly skilled in martial arts, was swaying left and right. However, Lung Yelyo didn't feel any shock waves. She only saw the sand and dust flying around her, but none of it reached her. Not only that, even Zhang Meng, who was in front of her, wasn't hurt by the sand and dust at all. Lung Yelyo's eyes widened. She couldn't believe what was happening around her. Sand and pebbles flew everywhere. Not only that, even the seats in the audience couldn't withstand the gust of wind. They were all blown away by the gust of wind. On the judge's stand, other than Nie Tianhao and Zhang Meng's tables and chairs, the rest of the seats were blown away by the gust of wind like kites with their strings cut. After a long while, the terrifying momentum slowly disappeared. Everything in front of them became clear again. All the judges and audience members returned to their seats one after another. Although no one had a seat to sit on, they all stood in their original seats and looked towards the arena. Everyone was taken aback when they saw what was going on in the arena. The audience and judges' seats had been blown away by the hurricane, but the Tiangongmen's table and armor, which were closest to the hurricane, were not affected by it at all. Seeing this scene, everyone sighed with emotion. Who would have thought that Elder Ji's martial arts had reached such a godly level? That's right. I'm afraid that even Jiang Nantian, the #1 man in the South County, might not be his match. That's right. Look at how strong Elder Ji's control is. The tables and equipment on the competition grounds aren't damaged at all. That's amazing. Han Qingyan was the first to run back. Before the dust had even settled, he had already run to the front of the competition venue. With Gu Yunfei's current attack power, Han Qingyan guessed that Gu Yunfei had already reached level 26. Under such a powerful attack, this piece of equipment that they estimated could be broken by level 25 should be able to be dealt with. However, when Han Qingyan ran to the competition grounds, he was stunned. After such a powerful attack, the Kikyamin's leather armor, which was made from the skin of a wild bear, was still intact. Han Qingyan looked at the leather armor in disbelief. After a while, he quickly walked to Gu Yunfei and asked in a trembling voice, "Master, how did this happen?" When Han Qingyan came over, Gu Yunfei was also staring at the leather armor in a daze. Hearing Han Qingyan's question, Gu Yunfei finally reacted. He He turned to look at Han Xingyun and asked blankly, "What did you say?" Han Xingyun heard this and asked again in a trembling voice, "Master, what happened just now? Why didn't it break the defense of the leather armor?" Gu Yunfei shook his head sadly. "I don't know. Such a powerful attack couldn't break the defense of the armor. That's impossible." Han Xingyun felt his heart gradually sink, as if it had fallen into a bottomless abyss. He didn't feel safe at all. Now that his attack had reached level 21, it still couldn't break the defense of the Kikyaman's leather armor. What should he do? Han Xingyun turned to look at Sun Xiaoer and the others who had rushed over. He suddenly turned to look at Gu Yunfei and said coldly, "Master, the only thing we can do now is to wait for the next attack and eat the 2 spirit-strengthening pills." 2 spirit-strengthening pills. Hearing these words, Gu Yunfei's heart couldn't help but tremble. 2 spirit-strengthening pills. It was easy to say, but it was equivalent to 4 years of life. Now that he had already lost 6 years of life, he was already regretting it. If he ate 2 more spirit-strengthening pills, he would lose 10 years of life. Thinking about losing 10 years of life, Gu Yunfei only felt a chill in his heart. Seeing that Gu Yunfei didn't speak, Han Xingyun hurriedly urged, "Master, there's no other way now. We can only fight to the death. There's still a chance. If we don't eat these 2 spirit-strengthening pills, I'm afraid we won't have another chance." At this moment, Sun Xiaoer and the others had arrived by his side. Seeing that the leather armor was still intact, Sun Xiaoer's face lit up with joy. Seeing the expression on Sun Xiaoer's face, Han Xingyun's heart was instantly filled with rage. A small Kikyaman was actually able to force him to this point. At this moment, Lung Yelyo also arrived by everyone's side. Looking at the leather armor on his side, he leaned over to Sun Xiaoer's side and said with a smile, "Zhang de Ge is really strong. Such a strong attack, but it still can't break the defense of the leather armor." After hearing Lung Yelyo's words, Sun Xiaoer's face suddenly changed. She hurriedly said in a low voice, "Quickly go and take a look. It's time to test the Tiangongman's equipment." Hearing Sun Xiaoer's order, Lung Yelyo hurriedly responded and hurriedly ran off. Han Xingyun looked at Lung Yelyo's back with some confusion. Suddenly, he turned to Sun Xiaoer and said angrily, "Sect leader's son, you broke the rules. Do you know that this is a competition between the Tiangongman and Kikyaman, yet you want an outsider to help you?" Speaking up to this point, Han Xingyun turned to Fan Yin and the others and said coldly, "Kikyaman has broken the contract. I think there's no need to continue this competition. Just declare Kikyaman as the loser." After hearing Han Xingyun's words, Fan Yin and the others were stunned. Sun Xiaoer said angrily, "Sect leader Han, don't talk nonsense. How did Kikyaman break the contract? If you don't explain it clearly, we'll consider you as the loser of this competition." After hearing Sun Xiaoer's question, Han Xingyun sneered and pointed at Lung Yelyo, who was walking away. "Sect leader's son, don't try to quibble. Just now, your daughter already said that it was all thanks to Prince Zhang's help." Chapter 400. Han Xingyun continued, "Clan leader's son, I thought that as a clan, you should have the dignity of a clan. I didn't expect you to find an outsider to help you. This is clearly a violation of our contract. Isn't this considered your loss?" After hearing Han Xingyun's words, Sun Xiaoer sneered, "Clan leader Han, speaking of violating the contract, do you think the Tiangongman's actions are reasonable?" At this point, Sun Xiaoer turned to look at Gu Yunfei and said angrily, "You bullied small clans like us. In order to win the competition, you went to the Tiangongman's elder to help you. You wanted to use such powerful martial arts to win the competition. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by outsiders?" After hearing Sun Xiaoer's words, Han Xingyun burst into laughter. "Clan leader's son, Elder Gu is my master. Do you think he's from the Tiangongman? Since this competition is between the Tiangongman and Kikyaman, what rules did my master break by helping you? Unless someone can prove that my master isn't from the Tiangongman, I have nothing to say. But who can prove it? At this point, Gu Yunfei pointed at Zhang Ming and said with a cold smile, "But this person, clan leader's son, tell me, who can prove that he's from Kikyaman? And you've already admitted that he's not from Kikyaman. If he helped you win the competition, wouldn't that be a violation of the contract?" At this point, Han Qingyun turned to look at Fan Yin again and said loudly, "Since Kikyaman has broken the contract, then according to the rules of the contract, seeing them is considered a loss." When Sun Xiaoer heard this, she said angrily, "Han Qingyun, which eye of yours saw Prince Zhang helping us?" At this point, Sun Xiaoer turned to look at Fan Yin and the others and asked loudly, "Did you see it? Did you see Prince Zhang helping us?" When they heard Sun Xiaoer's question, Fan Yin and the others looked at each other, but no one said a word. The reason why Fan Yin and the others were here was because Han Qingyun had invited them. Logically speaking, they should be on Han Qingyun's side. However, they had no evidence. Prince Zhang was sitting so far away. Even if he wanted to help Kikyaman, he had no chance. After all, the judges weren't the only ones in the competition venue. There were also many spectators watching. If the judges decided that Kikyaman had lost because of this incident, they would lose all face if word got out. Although they knew this was the case, they could not embarrass Han Qingyun. Therefore, Fan Yin and the others did not say anything. This was the best choice. Seeing that Fan Yin and the others were silent, Sun Xiaoer turned to Han Qingyun and said angrily, "Han Qingyun, do you still want to compete in this competition? If you don't want to compete, then forget it. I won't force you." Seeing that Fan Yin and the others did not say anything, Han Qingyun's irritable mood gradually calmed down. He was afraid that he could not rely on this to win the competition. At this thought, Han Qingyun gritted his teeth and laughed coldly. "Why not? Today, I want to see how many levels of attack your Kikyaman's leather armor can withstand." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Sun Xiaoer heaved a sigh of relief. She waved at the female Kikyaman disciple who had been waiting for a long time and said loudly, "Go ahead and test the Taingalman's equipment." The female Kikyaman disciple hurriedly acknowledged her and walked towards the Taingalman's equipment with a level 21 sword. This female Kikyaman disciple did not have much attack power, so there was no need for the others to hide. They all turned to look in her direction. Being stared at by so many people, the female Kikyaman disciple was a little nervous. When she saw the Taingalman's equipment not far away, she suddenly roared. As she ran, she raised the sword in her hand high. When she was close enough, the female Taingalman disciple roared and raised the sword in her hand. Then, she slashed at the equipment with all her might. Clang! After the sound of the collision, the female Taingalman disciple was forced back a few steps again. At the same time, a few gasps could be heard from the competition grounds. Han Qingyun's heart sank. The Taingalman's equipment was made of deep-sea cold iron and adamantine. After being strengthened by the spirit water, it finally showed signs of damage at level 21. Although it was only a shallow wound, everyone knew that once a wound appeared, the defense would definitely be broken in the next attack. When Lung Yelyo saw the wound, she was instantly overjoyed. She quickly ran to Sun Xiaoer's side and said happily, "Mother, their equipment has been damaged again. Mother, their equipment has been damaged again. The next attack will definitely be able to break through the defense of that armor. Mother, we're going to win." Sun Xiaoer smiled and nodded as she patted her daughter's head. Han Qingyun's face was a little pale. He was an expert in crafting equipment. Naturally, he knew that Lung Yelyo was telling the truth. Since there were wounds on the equipment, the defense would definitely be broken by a level 22 attack. Were the Taingalman going to lose? When he thought of this possibility, cold sweat immediately appeared on Han Qingyun's forehead. This kind of situation was almost unavoidable. The defense of this equipment had already reached its limit. It was almost impossible to increase the defense of this equipment again, unless he used the precious spirit water again. When he thought of the spirit water, Han Qingyun felt his heart tremble violently. The Taingalman had a total of 21 drops of spirit water. He had already used 10 drops of spirit water. In other words, the Taingalman were only left with 11 drops of spirit water. In other words, there were only 11 drops of spirit water left in the world. Should he use the spirit water again? This thought kept rolling in Han Qingyun's mind. He felt a splitting headache. The leader of the Tiangongmen, Zhu Jinshi, was now in seclusion. Everything was under Han Qingyun's control. It was also because of this that Han Qingyun could use the spirit water. Han Qingyun had already used 10 drops of spirit water. He did not know how to explain it to Zhu Jinshi. If he used the spirit water again, Han Qingyun did not know what would happen. However, Han Qingyun was very clear that if he did not use the spirit water again, the next attack would definitely break the defense of his equipment. When that time came, the Tiangongmen would lose this match. Han Qingyun could not accept this outcome. Most importantly, he could not bear the responsibility. The deep-sea frost iron and adamantine did not matter. Although these two materials were precious, as long as he spent a little more money, he could always buy them. However, the spirit water was different. The Tiangongmen had a total of 21 drops. He had already used 10 drops. If he continued to use it, when he thought of this problem, Han Qingyun was shocked. If he did not use the spirit water again, he would definitely lose. If he used the spirit water, there was still a chance of winning. Chapter 401. Han Qingyun turned his head and looked at Kikyamin's leather armor. He suddenly had an idea. If he won this competition, he would be able to obtain the craftsmanship of this leather armor. Then, even if he lost some spiritual water, he would be able to atone for his mistake. However, if he gave up just like that, everything would be over. Not only would he lose this competition, but he would also lose so much spiritual water. He was afraid that he would not be able to bear such a loss. Thinking of this, Han Qingyun suddenly gritted his teeth and made up his mind. Now that things had come to this, he could only give it his all. If he could win the 7 possibilities sex match, then even if he had to use up all of his spirit water, he would still be able to rely on the craftsmanship of this leather armor. Thinking of this, Han Qingyun suddenly turned around and walked toward Han Yuchao. Sun Shower looked at Han Qingyun, who was leaving, and was puzzled. When she saw that Han Qingyun was walking towards Han Yuchao, she was immediately shocked. There was only one reason why Han Qingyun was looking for Han Yuchao, and that was to go back and get something. Could it be that Han Qingyun was going to use that spiritual water again? Sun Shower was not the only one who had been watching Han Qingyun. Yun Jianbai was also paying attention to Han Qingyun's every move. At this moment, when he saw Han Qingyun walking towards Han Yuchao, 2 words suddenly appeared in Yun Jianbai's mind. Spiritual water. He must be going back to get the spiritual water. Thinking that Han Qingyun was going to use the spiritual water again, even Yun Jianbai, who was an outsider, felt his heart thumping wildly. Although Yun Jianbai did not know how much spiritual water the Tiangongmen had, he believed that the Tiangongmen definitely did not have much of such a precious treasure. Just now, he had already used 10 drops of spiritual water. Was he going to use another 10 drops of spiritual water now? Thinking of this, Yun Jianbai had an impulse to ask if he could sell him a drop of spiritual water. Of course, this was just a thought. Since things had already come to this point, Han Qingyun had no way out. If he retreated, there was only one path left, which was failure. If he failed, Han Qingyun knew clearly what the outcome would be. Han Qingyun came to Han Yuchao's side and said in a low voice, "Go back as soon as possible and get another 5 drops of spirit water." After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Han Yuchao was shocked and asked in a trembling voice, "Father, I think we should just forget about it. There are still 11 drops of spiritual water left. If we use them again, I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with." After hearing Han Yuchao's words, Han Qingyun's face immediately darkened. He said angrily, "Why are you wasting your breath? I told you to go get the spiritual water. Just go quickly." Seeing his father's ugly expression, although Han Yuchao was unwilling, he could only reluctantly agree and run out of the arena. Looking at Han Yuchao's back, Han Qingyun wondered if there were any other good methods to increase Gu Yunfei's attack power. There were only two ways to increase Gu Yunfei's attack power. One was to take medicine, and the other was to have a good weapon. In terms of weapons, it was impossible to change. For the sake of fairness, both sides would use the same weapon to test each other's equipment. Therefore, in terms of weapons, there was nothing that could be done. Since he couldn't solve this problem with weapons, he could only solve this problem by taking medicine. Now that he had given Gu Yunfei the spirit-boosting pill, if Gu Yunfei ate 5 of them, his strength would increase by 5 times. What other good methods could increase Gu Yunfei's strength again? Thinking of this, Han Qingyun couldn't help but frown. The spirit-boosting pill wasn't an ordinary medicine. Although the side effects of this medicine were too great, the price was still quite expensive. Moreover, it wasn't something that could be bought with money. It was considered a precious item. Other than the spirit-boosting pill, what other things could increase Gu Yunfei's strength? Han Qingyun thought for a long time, but he couldn't think of anything that could increase a person's strength. Just as he was feeling a little depressed, his eyes suddenly lit up. He saw Fan Yen. Fan Yen was the 8th disciple of the Medicine King Pavilion. In terms of refining pills, his attainments were not to be underestimated. He was a true alchemy master. Seeing Fan Yen, Han Qingyun suddenly had an idea. As an alchemy master, Fan Yen would definitely have a unique understanding of how to increase one's strength. Thinking of this, Han Qingyun hurriedly waved at Fan Yen and shouted at the same time. Fan Yen, Brother Fan, please come over. I have something to discuss with you. Fan Yen, who was talking to Yin Jianbai, was stunned when he heard Han Qingyun's call. He quickly walked over to Han Qingyun. Arriving in front of Han Qingyun, Fan Yen cupped his hands and asked, Sect Leader Han, is there anything I can help you with? Han Qingyun smiled and nodded. There is indeed something that I would like to trouble Brother Fan with. After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Fan Yen hurriedly waved his hand. Sect Leader Han, you're too polite. If there's anything, just say it. There's no need to be so courteous. Between us brothers, there's no need for formalities. Hearing Fan Yan's straightforward words, Han Qingyun nodded. He then lowered his voice and said, Brother Fan, you've seen this match. Who do you think will win in the end? After hearing Han Qingyun's question, Mr. Fan Yen was stunned for a moment. He then shook his head awkwardly. Secmaster Han, what are you talking about? I don't know much about equipment. How can I tell the outcome of this match? Hearing this, Han Qingyun waved his hand. Brother Fan, there's no need to be so formal between us brothers. Saying this, Han Qingyun paused for a moment and then smiled at Fan Yen. Brother Fan, I'll be honest with you now. I'm very nervous about this match. Hearing Han Qingyun's words, Fan Yan's heart skipped a beat, but he still shook his head and smiled. Sect Leader Han, you're too humble. Although Kikyaman's leather armor has amazing defensive capabilities, in my opinion, the material used to make it is only the skin of a wild bear. The quality is not high. Even if its defensive capabilities are amazing, its upper limit is definitely not very high. I believe that it won't be long before it reaches its upper limit. When that time comes, with Elder Ji's attack, it should be easy to break through the defense of this leather armor. After hearing Fan Yan's words, Han Qingyun smiled bitterly and shook his head. Brother Fan, a straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. If this match continues, the Tiangongmen will definitely lose. After hearing Han Qingyun's words, Fan Yan's smile hung awkwardly on his face. After a while, he sighed. I really didn't expect Kikyaman's craftsmanship to have reached such a high level. A piece of leather armor made from the skin of a wild bear has so far caught a level 21 attack. This is really unexpected. After hearing Fan Yan's words, Han Qingyun nodded and smiled bitterly. Brother Fan, you've seen it too. The Tiangongmen cannot lose this match. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.